Due to technical difficulties, it looks like we're gonna have a spur of the moment stream here on the Ogres channel. Hello, no one. Someone may show up, someone may not. Who knows, man? This was not planned by me. What we have going on is some technical difficulties over at the Logical Lions channel. And he asked me if I would host this for him because of technical difficulties. I'm not sure. Just tell him over here. I'm in here. Sent link. And we'll see what happens. Waiting on the lion. There's the Britisher. So the Logical Lion, this is what the Logical Lion wanted, right, Britisher? Because if not, dude, I'll just say goodbye and go and find, because he's like hosted because he's having problems. I put his title up here.
Yeah, he had a can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, no, he had a crash, and he basically said he hasn't. I asked him whether, I can see you're now in his chat and have told him you've sent him a link. So okay, yeah, we will more than likely all be moving over here.
Yeah, I'll send this out, or he can send the well, I don't know if I can. I'm not a moderator on his channel. I'll try to send this out into his chat. There were a couple people watching. Nope, we can't do it. He can send it whenever, or tell them, or I'll send it on Twitter or something. I'm not too terribly worried about it. We were talking. Oh, here he is. Take over, mate. If you looked in the thing, I'll put it in the side chat. Logical Lion. You can send this back out to the chat out there. I just named this the Logicast 5 DNC election rigging and the trickle down damage. You can take this, copy it, and put it right on your channel when it's all over with.
Thank you, dude. You are my fucking hero.
Oh, let's not go that far. But I'd be happy to. I know you do it for me. So here we are.
Oh, dude. I'm so frustrated. What a pain in the ass. This fucking computer.
OBS, I'll tell you this, bro. When you said you were using OBS, I had a badass box. It was 10 years old. I built it. It was bad to the bone, man. Had 8 gigs of RAM, not enough for OBS. I got this this Acer G6 Predator, 32 gigs of RAM, fucking 4.6 gigahertz Pentium i7, and it runs it good. But man, it's a toughie. My old box wouldn't run XSplit. It wouldn't run OBS. It would for a minute, but then the computer would crash.
Yeah, that sucks.
Causes a lot of heat, and it takes a lot of energy.
It's palpable because it's only hot in one spot. Like I can feel along the top of the case, all fine. Back of the case, all fine. I hit that one spot where I know the video card in is hotter than shit.
Speaking of hitting that spot, I don't know where Kim went, but if you want to send her the link here to this thing, I'd love to have her on. Britisher, this girl's right up your street, man. I don't know if you
okay.
I don't know if you could hear the. No, I'm not talking about how she looks. I mean, what she.
I know.
She was talking about just some things you would love, man. I thought we were on air, and she was telling me like her stance on, the female and male situation that it seems is so controversial nowadays. It was refreshing to hear her say that she pretty much agrees with you and me and Johnny McEnroe.
Yeah, she's a white supremacist.
Oh, what? Really? No,
not really.
Well, I mean, you never know, but that would have kind of, okay. You got me twice now, Lion. It's supposed to be my day off.
It's what I do, my friend. So when we left off, unfortunately, she was saying something and my fucking computer exploded. What was she talking about? Because I know that I had. Oh yeah, we were moving on. We were talking about Hillary Clinton and the overcharging thing and how she's responsible. But I don't know what Kimmy was closing on there. I mean, we can move on to the next article.
I mean, I heard some of that, and I was just wondering, to what extent are those things actually still in the hands of the person who is the candidate, and to what extent does the party machine step in?
Right. That's my overall question. That's my bigger question is, do we hold Hillary Clinton accountable for the actions of her supporters?
Well, not supporters, but people in her, and I must have heard what I said, Britisher, so I won't say it again. Yes, I know one thing. She's a control freak. She knows what's going on. I think in that
regard, we both, we will both will basically see it from very much the same angle, that we wouldn't really put anything past this woman. But, you know, in order to be fair, you just need to ask yourself, would that actually be within her purview? Or wouldn't she be on a sort of, you know, a much higher pay grade to actually be, you know, to be involved with that sort of decision making? Do you understand what I mean? That this may actually be this may be too petty to be within, you know, to be brought to her attention. Do you understand what I mean?
Well, British, or the people
Yes.
that work around her and for her all say nothing is too petty. Not what kind of silverware, not what's going to be in the press release, nothing. She wants to know everything that's going on and kind of give that final stamp of approval.
And it does raise the question, does she, I mean, will she go as far down as the mundane collection of $25 donations? I mean, is her control
I mean, one of the
freakery?
questions you need to ask, could she actually do that? Insofar
Well, I would
as,
think
you know,
it would be overwhelming.
That's what I mean. If you consider how many decisions somebody would be taking, however much of a control freak they are, I mean, it only adds more time that they need to spend doing these things. It would come to making decisions on that basis. It may be beyond a 24-hour day.
I'm not trying to make her sound like a superwoman either, sir. What I'm trying to help, what I imagine it like this, if you will. I imagine Caesar there and someone coming and saying, Caesar, unrolling and scrolling, very briefly saying, this is what's going on. And half the time Caesar's sitting there going, yeah, you know, that maybe doesn't even register at all. But from all accounts, she is the kind of person that wants the people with folders lined up coming through and saying, Madam Secretary, Madam Secretary, Madam Secretary, Madam Secretary. So,
I mean, I like the idea that you floated about, could it be that they've basically got algorithms to ascertain who are the people who are perhaps regular donors, who perhaps might not mind being overcharged? Because, I mean, even if they discover that they are overcharged, are they really going to go against the very candidate they are backing and bring a lawsuit or something like that? So in that regard, yes, one might have effectively discovered a certain vulnerability of one's own supporters that one can exploit.
So I want to give a quick recap for I Like the Holocaust and anyone else who just joined us because we had kind of the technical difficulties and had to jump to a different ship. What we're talking about is an article, and actually if you're able to do screen sharing, I don't know if you can share my screen. I can bring up the article, Ogre. The premise is that the Hillary Clinton campaign overcharged donors, small donors. So when someone would call in and make like a $25 donation, when they would get their credit card statement, they would have 2 or 3 charges for the Hillary Clinton campaign. And this is not an isolated incident. Apparently it was happening across the board all over the country to the point of where banks were receiving, they basically were inundated with basically fraud and reimbursement calls. So the question then becomes, is Hillary basically culpable due to her complacency, or as Ogre suggests, that she's Caesar-esque, sitting on her throne, approving of such activities. In which case, obviously, I think she would definitely be culpable in that regard. Which I think is probably a good jumping off to the next article that I had, which is further about Hillary Clinton fundraising, but it gets even more insidious. As if stealing from grandma wasn't bad enough. Hillary Clinton, and man, if you can do a screen sharing, it would be.
You're screen sharing right now, mate. You just have to put it up on your screen.
Okay, so what do I do? Just full screen it like that?
You have to go into the side. You'll see a little green. Oh, you're running OBS. I don't really know.
No, I'm not. I'm just using.
Well, then you just go to the little green arrow. It's the second one down. The first one's a blue thing that says chat. Click screen that, share. And then pick the screen you want. Put OK.
Like this?
There you go. Boom.
That working?
Like that.
All right, cool. So Hillary Clinton, working with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, what she would do is she would go do state fundraisers. And what I'll do is I'll read. There's 3 paragraphs here I want to read, and I read fairly quickly, so hopefully folks can keep up. Because this is encompassing what I want to talk about. In the days before Hillary Clinton launched an unprecedented big money fundraising vehicle with state parties last summer, she vowed and this is really important, quote, to rebuild our party from the ground up, proclaiming when our state parties are strong, we win. That's what will happen. But less than 1% of the $61 million raised by that effort has stayed in the state party's coffers, according to a political analysis of the latest Federal Election Commission filings. The venture, the Hillary Victory Fund, is a so-called joint fundraising committee comprised of Clinton's presidential campaign, the Democratic National Committee, our favorite, and 32 state party committees. The setup allows Clinton to solicit checks of $350,000 or more from her super rich supporters at extravagant fundraisers, including a dinner at George Clooney's house and a concert at Radio City Music Hall featuring Katy Perry and Elton John. This is the part. Pay attention to this. The Victory Fund has transferred $3.8 million to the state parties, but almost all of that cash, $3.3 million, or 88%, was quickly transferred to the DNC, usually within a day or two, by the Clinton staffer who controls the committee. Yeah. By contrast, the Victory Fund has transferred $15.4 million to Clinton's campaign and $5.7 million to the DNC, which will work closely with Clinton's campaign if and when she becomes the party's nominee. And most of the $23.3 million spent directly by the Victory Fund has gone towards expenses that appear to have directly benefited Clinton's campaign, including $2.8 million for salary and overhead and $8.6 million for web advertising that mostly looks indistinguishable from Clinton campaign ads. So what this means, for those keeping score at home, is that Hillary Clinton would do campaigns around the country in different states. She would enlist the help of the Democratic State Party to basically come out, put up flyers, make a big stink about it, and then her fame would bring out the big money donors. How this works in the Democratic Party is typically the state gets anywhere from 35 to 50%, depending on who it is. Like Barack Obama, obviously the state would get 35% because he's a big name, he brings out the crowds, and because he is running in national elections and needs a shit ton more money, that's why they generally give the lion's share to the national candidate. But typically it doesn't go lower than 35, 25. A decent amount of the booty goes to the state. Hillary Clinton, when she came through, was pocketing 99%. Now, what that means in the long run, and that's really the whole point of this conversation that I wanted to have tonight, is since 2016, since the elections in 2016, the Democrats have lost elections in Minnesota, Connecticut, Florida, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Kansas, Montana, Georgia, South Carolina. The list goes on and on and on and on. My question to you, my good thinking friends, did Hillary Clinton's whirlwind campaign of basically emptying state coffers lead to this unprecedented losing streak among the Democratic Party because she took all their campaign money? They're broke. They can't compete with Republicans. That's my contention. What do you guys think? Do you agree with that? Do you think that it's just a function of where the left has gone and not so much Hillary Clinton's antics? I mean, what do you think?
Britisher?
Well, I mean, the argument regarding the financial hollowing out of the state parties, I mean, that seems to hold true if this article is correct. But, and I know now my American friends here will laugh at me when I say this, but surely money is not everything. So what I mean is, given that much of the voting actually happens on a kind of tribal basis, unless you are only talking swing states. May
I interject real quick? Because I have to contend that point. To my knowledge, and I'll Google this ad nauseum, I do not know of a single election in the history of modern elections where the person who spent the less won. I literally know of none. I think it's 100% where the person who spends the most money wins the election.
Donald Trump. And just now in the Handel versus that young guy that they raised all the money for in Georgia, in the 9th district or wherever that was, he also spent less than one. It does happen.
Okay, I'll Google.
Well, I mean, but what you're saying is also in Britisher, it's not so much the swing states as, remember this, when it comes right down to it, the way they have the system rigged in this country, and I believe to some extent in yours also, is there's only two parties. So when it comes right down to the end, you have a large group of people that were libertarians, whatever, whoever they were, that weren't affiliated with, weren't tribal, in other words, that now the money's going to influence those people. And, I don't really get it. I wish in my heart that, and I want to know one other thing, unless you got something to say about that, Britt. When you were reading that article, the money distribution like that, was that Donna Brazile and Wasserman Schultz? Were they the ones that were taking all that money and giving that all to the Clinton campaign? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Unequivocally, yes.
Yeah, unequivocally. And so anyway, but there you go, Britt. So the money, yes, it's very tribal. 9 times out of 10 will vote for a libertarian or a Republican. But if I get convinced, I'll vote for a Democrat. I've done it in the past.
But you see that, in that regard, I am, of course, talking from a very foreign land, because which was this? There was recently a congressional seat that I think was up for grabs, and it was kind of marketed as being a judgment upon Trump's presidency so far. So both sides piled enormous amounts of money into there. Was it something like $50 million that was spent in total?
Oh Lord! Are you talking about in the Georgia race? Yeah, it was the largest one in history for a House seat.
I kid you not. They actually outspent. And this will give you an idea of the scale. They outspent in Georgia, or whatever seat it was. They outspent the British national elections.
Well, but so with all due respect, Great Britain is about the size of Georgia.
Well, yeah. But what I mean is, you are talking.
I mean that with respect too. I wasn't trying to get a dig in, Brit. Humanity speaking, there's 35 million Brits, so there are more people. But
there's 65 million British.
It's still staggering, notwithstanding. 50 million.
There are something. What is it? There's 650 seats up for grabs. So for an election for 650 parliamentary seats
versus 1,
the national parties actually spent about an equivalent amount or less than in this particular congressional seat. So you look at that and you just begin to scratch your head. So
that was very unusual. And Holocaust, I was saying that we know. I know the Democrats spent more. That was the point, that they spent more in that situation but lost. Sorry about that, bro.
But I say that's why perhaps I'm looking at from a somewhat detached perspective, that I can't understand how the money can talk to that degree in the American elections, given that over here it just doesn't to that extent. Do you understand what I mean?
Did I tell you, Britt, that last night was the 6th night? They were blowing fireworks off last night until 3 o'clock in the morning. In America, for some reason, if you spend $100,000 on fireworks because you just got the money, it means you're more American than me. So I don't know why it works that way either, but it does seem, and I'm tying it into this election deal. They spend more money, so good Lord, they must want it more. Let's vote for the dummies.
I'll tell you the difference. The difference between the reason why the American elections money talks and the British elections not so much is because of pub culture. What I mean by that is, in Britain, you still have a very talk to your neighbor type environment. You have pub culture where you go down to the local pub, you shoot the shit, you watch a soccer game, football. In America, you don't, you're welcome. You don't talk about religion. You don't talk about politics. We don't engage in a face-to-face type interaction like that anymore. So where's your outlet? Media, television, radio, places where ads can be purchased. So if your only source of information on the candidates is coming from media sources, and the only people who can afford media sources are the ones with the most money, who do you think is going to get the most exposure? Therefore, who do you think is going to get the most name recognition and therefore votes? Money talks in America because money buys ad space, period.
I understand all, I understand the exposure. I understand the name recognition thing, all those things. But,
We'd have a cult of personality. We do in America. We legitimately do. When we see a name we recognize, something inside us ticks, and we go, "Oh yeah, okay, I know him."
Yeah,
I
think that's agreeing with that, though, but they just go about it different. Y'all have a cult of personality there too, but you just don't spend the money to get there.
Yes, but I think when it comes to the cult of personality, what we have seen in America, and this is a very good point, the cult of personality thing, because what we have seen in America is effectively two people who have staged a coup in their respective parties. Because, I mean, Hillary Clinton has been much more organized about it. She has effectively staged a coup in the Democrat Party, and she has taken over that beast. It is now effectively her party.
To what detriment, though?
Well, I mean, you know, it is no. What I mean is, normally a party is a umbrella organization of many different voices, of many different influences. It's to a certain degree, it's a debating society. You know, it is also something that is kind of like a listening post that picks up the trends in the populace and then slowly, gradually turns these things into policies. Whereas that has now effectively ceased. It has now become an organization that is simply there for the promotion of Hillary Clinton.
Well, and I would say that ended, Britt, when she lost the election, but I can't disagree with that even a little bit, because I don't think Hillary's got another run in her. If she does, I will say that I believe that you'd be right again. In other words, if she threw her hat in 4 years, man, I don't really know.
Well, I think to all intents and purposes, it looks as if she is perfectly intent in doing it again.
Oh, she won't. I don't think she'll make it through the RNC.
Given that she has put in place people at the higher echelons of the party who effectively have her interest at heart, it seems difficult to see how one could stop her. So unless she just falls over dead, I'm not really sure how she could be prevented from standing again and basically making herself once again the default candidate of the Democrat Party.
Man, you're killing me. Fall over dead. What keeps her from standing again? Those are all like slight little things I want to comment on. Phrasing, Brett. Phrasing.
But when it comes to the other side, this is a much more chaotic coup. But to a certain extent, Trump also enacted a coup in the Republican Party, which too, again, has now effectively been turned into the Donald Trump show. He hasn't got as much control over the party because he never sort of went about it in organized fashion.
He did it through the people. She did it through the party. He got there through the people, and now they got to deal with him. The Republicans hate him.
He controls the grassroots of the party, whereas she controls the machinery of the party.
Right.
But to a certain degree, what it means is that both of them have effectively staged a coup in their respective parties, and that effectively the parties now are run for their benefit.
You contend that the Republican Party is run for the benefit of Trump, or do you think that he is still in the process of winning his coup? Because I agree with you on Hillary. I think that you're exactly right. Cut off their noses.
No. I think he is basically perhaps the coup is the wrong analogy when it comes to Trump. Perhaps it is more the fact that he has hijacked it. So you've effectively got a car where, you know, the driver has basically been shunted across onto the other seat, and some big guy with a gun has grabbed the steering wheel and is just rampaging about the town with this car. Now, the only way the Republican driver is going to get control of this vehicle again is if the kind of this whirlwind that has hijacked this thing leaves. Other than that, it seems very difficult to see how the Republicans are going to get control of it again, because they don't have control of their base. He is speaking to the base, and they are all seen by the very base as kind of detached elitist politicians. It's very, very hard for them to come up with some kind of formula whereby they get their own party back, unless Donald Trump lets them.
Do you think that Hillary Clinton, as the figurehead of the DNC machine, do you think that she is truly above the law?
Well, it would seem that she is above the law when it came to her emails. I mean, there is no doubt about that. I mean, I think the person who put it best was Ben Shapiro, because I mean, he did a piece where he picked apart everything, and given that he is trained in law, he had the vocabulary and he had the methodology of going about it, and he said it was just astonishing. It was quite unbelievable. And he wasn't really looking at it at the time with his, with his ideological blinkers on, because we know he is of the right. But he was far more just looking at it as a lawyer and saying, how on earth could this woman have been found to be allowed to walk free? Because there just doesn't seem to be any way.
Maybe of the right, but he's not of the Trump. He did not like Donald Trump in any way.
Oh no, he couldn't stand Trump, and he made an equally good piece about Trump in which he also devastated Trump. I think it was Mitt Romney who then actually used some of the data that Shapiro used. You remember Mitt Romney did a speech in which he talked about Trump's failed businesses and things like that. I think that came from Shapiro. He basically lifted that from there, I believe.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro is a vicious intellect. He is.
Oh, he's incredibly sharp.
Yeah, kiss his ass.
Yes,
kiss his butt.
I love that little Jew bastard.
No, he is very impressive. When he really gets going, he is very impressive.
I'm impressed when he shuts the hell up. I like Ben Shapiro.
I disagree with him on Trump in a lot of cases, but for the most part, I'm with you. I think he's
really smug.
There's only one thing I can say, given that the ogre is picking on poor Ben Shapiro, and that means that the ogre clearly is an anti-Semite.
Nice try. I'm a Jew. But the problem that I have with Ben is that I don't really have a problem with the guy. If anything, he's not. He's really tough in his debates and when he's there with people answering questions, whatever. But then he kind of lays off too much, and I feel like there's more the guy could do. I know that sounds like a lot because he does a lot, but I don't know. There's something about him. He's no Gavin McInnes.
I would rank him higher than Gavin McInnes, but
I know you would.
I'm with the finisher. I would.
I think there was.
Gavin's a little too rough.
I think there was one thing I'm trying to remember the exact verbiage he used, and that was that I think Comey said something like she had been recklessly careless,
right?
And he basically picked that up and said, "Could you tell me what the difference would be between? Could anybody tell me what the difference would be between recklessly careless and grossly negligent?" Because grossly negligent would be against the law. But recklessly careless has been found not to be. And it's things like that where you could see he kind of really applied the surgeon's knife and gradually sort of took it apart, the whole Comey statement and things like that, and just basically said there is just no way in hell that this woman should not be tried.
Right. I think the problem with Hillary Clinton being a Teflon Don, one of the problems, is that she fosters, when you combine that with her super control freak asshole nature. Hang on, I'm gonna reach back and kill this fan. Okay. Anyway, when you combine that with her control freak nature, I think you have the recipe for kind of disaster, really. You have someone who, I don't want to say is unhinged, but who's not. She's not someone who you really want to have the kind of power that she has in terms of being, Teflon, being above the law. And I think what ends up happening is, going back to the overcharging thing, is that the people under her, the people that work for her, start to develop this attitude, this environment of criminology or criminality rather, goes with the job description. And I think you end up having things like the overcharging being systemic of a leader who embraces dishonesty.
I think what you mean is that she wouldn't necessarily be directly responsible, because she wouldn't have been the one who necessarily okayed this overcharging.
And so
she effectively sets the tone.
Yes.
And that therefore she perhaps is morally responsible, because she creates the environment in which this sort of attitude flourishes.
Right, and when your boss is above the law, it tends to make you think, sorry, I just took a big hit. Woo! So when your boss is above the law, it tends to make you think you can be above the law. And I think that's what we're seeing in this DNC lawsuit. I think Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Donna Brazil believe themselves to be the apostles of Teflon Hillary. And I think what is going to happen with this DNC lawsuit, I think the DNC has already made the decision that Wasserman Schultz is the patsy, that she's the scapegoat. I wanted to kind of milk this and do several Logicasts out of it, but I'm too excited in a bad sort of way because of the research I've been doing over the last probably 3 days. Because I'm writing an article for. Sorry, go ahead, go for it.
Yeah, can I just interject, because you call her Teflon
Please.
Hillary, and I think she is quite the opposite of Teflon. There are certain politicians who are Teflon. To a certain extent, Trump has some Teflon qualities about him. I think Bill Clinton, in his heyday, very much was a Teflon politician.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what you threw at him, it didn't stick. But when it comes to Hillary, I think everything has stuck. She isn't Teflon insofar that nobody believes that she's guilty. She is just
Vince Foster, Britisher.
Sorry?
Vince Foster.
Yeah, one of the bodies.
Yeah, as I say, I think in the case
her daughter's father's name is Webster Hubble. She's not, the things that have stuck to her and have affected her are very minuscule compared to Whitewater Gate, Cattle Futures, Travel Gate. It goes on, and these are things that are connected with Hillary, not Bill.
But again, I have to blur it. I have to directly contradict you.
Sorry for trampling.
Ogre, no, Ogre, you made my point for me. The fact that you can rattle off a list of scandals that have been thrown on her that she has dodged and weaved, that is the definition of Teflon Don, my friend. That is the definition of having shit thrown at you.
I think in that case
she's
we
the
perhaps
Matrix.
differ. I think in that case we perhaps differ in how we define Teflon.
Okay.
Well, Brett, we're not talking about.
Basically,
let's be clear. Let's not talk about tweets, sir. We're talking about actual things that are criminal.
Yeah, but can I just finish the point? Because
please.
As far as I'm concerned, Teflon, the way I see it, and I think this is where we differ. I think when you look at Teflon, you look at it and say you are Teflon if you can't be got for it. Whereas I argue that Teflon is if people simply don't believe it. If you simply
You're talking Slick Willy.
Yeah, if you simply can't bring the mainstream, if you can't bring the populace with you, if everybody just thinks, oh, but he's such a nice man, he would never do such a thing. That, to me, that is Teflon. Do you understand what I mean? Where you just feel that you just realize that it doesn't really matter what you throw at this person, no matter how true it may be, that you cannot get the populace or the media. Now, I know these days the media, that's a difficult thing given that they become so partisan, but you simply cannot get the sort of broad mainstream to ever believe that this person has done any wrong. And that's how you can kind of get politicians who at times are even found guilty in court. In various countries, you find people who have been found guilty of various hideous crimes time and time again, and yet they just still continue to have a political career. Because in that regard, that is how I define Teflon. I think the way you define Teflon is that they can't ever be found guilty in a court of law.
Well, and also the finer print said it would be better if we called her a trampoline, because things bounce off of her. But anyway, and tramp is in there, I'm assuming, is why that was funny to me.
Clever. That boy funny.
And Britt, look, I gotta say this, man, and I don't want to make it all this Trump because you hate Donald Trump and you think that I'm a dagnab, diehard Trump, and I believe that you hate him no matter what, and I think we're both probably wrong about each other. But that said, I don't want to think that we would consider Teflon Donald because tweets don't stick to him, or false accusations of Russian collusion or any of these insane things that never were. But if we're going to keep it strictly to how do the people perceive the person afterwards, I think you got to go back to tribalism, Britt. The people that love Donald Trump don't care. The people that hate him, everything sticks, and vice versa.
You're talking. That's a great point, man. You're talking about snowballs versus bullets. In the one case with Trump, his tweets or whatever don't stick to him. You know, he says stupid shit and nobody really cares. But in Hillary's case, we're talking about actual crimes. And I don't know, maybe that's a distinction to me.
Yeah, I would like to think of a crime that maybe Donald did.
If we go back in history, we also know that there seems to have been some, actual real life corruption around Donald Trump and things like that. Oh,
no question.
Which
no, I don't know of any. Would you please tell me something like that, sir?
Bridget, let me field this real quick. Okay, I'm gonna keep it as simple as I can for you. Okay, New York real estate. Okay, we're done. That's all I need.
No, we're not done, because the funny thing is, especially he's one of the few people that have a concealed carry for the island of Manhattan. It's very difficult to get. His business dealings.
What the fuck does that have to do with real estate?
Well, I'm going to get there if you let me, because you just said real estate in New York City. There we go. That's like saying because he bought concrete in New York City, he's affiliated with the mob. I've heard that too. That's just insane. Yeah, he may have bought it from a mobster, but he's not affiliated with the mob. That said, they have put a sniffer up his butt before he redid the skate rink there that they couldn't get done in 14 years. He did in 6 months. They put a sniffer up his butt. Yeah. Then he was in the Atlantic City casinos to get casino licenses down there, folks. You have to be ready. It's almost like getting confirmed for SCOTUS. You are put through a microscope. So his life has been, the only thing I've ever heard anybody bring up, I'm surprised neither one of you did, was, there was a lawsuit.
We've not had any chance yet.
Go ahead. Give me one, Brett. Give me one that's real. I'd love to hear it.
Well, I would say you must forgive me for not being able to give you dates and states and whatever. I'm not quite as well read on U.S.
Trump
politics.
University.
Well, yes, I mean Trump University, but what I have heard of is that there were several incidents where Trump was effectively being investigated, and it basically looked as though there were basically court proceedings pending. They were on their way, and I believe when it comes to is it prosecutors who can be state prosecutors, and I don't know, they can be they can get to elected positions. That Trump in several cases suddenly gave donations to the very people who were bringing prosecutions.
I've never heard anything like that. I would like to see an article or anything on that, because that was a really hang on now. That was a really rambling thing you said there, Brett. You said there have been the only court cases I know about against Donald Trump that actually made it to anywhere
reported on the BBC. So
was a right to housing, was fair housing, and I think everybody in the Bronx got charges of that at one time or another.
Well, it wouldn't be unusual. The difference is that this is a guy who made
certain terminology. That's the problem. In order to give you, but.
All right,
there's no controversy at this point that I know of.
You did put me on the spot there.
Okay. Well, I like that because everybody says that Trump has done this, that, and he's a white supremacist and he had a bunch of shady business deals. I've looked hard. The only thing that I've found was some girls, right coincidentally, when he was doing the Bill Clinton's a rapist thing and then Alex Jones, and he was talking about that shit during the second debate. All of a sudden, there was some girls that accused him of this stuff, but it didn't even make it to court. Everything was either dropped or thrown out. And I don't think he donated. Plus, Britisher, listen, in our country, if anybody donates to someone, like, for example, some people carjacked me. And I was there, and I was talking to the prosecutor and the detective, and man, you know a little bit about me. I was a joker. I make soap. I took these boys. I took I took the lead prosecutor in Bay City, Michigan. I took him a bar of soap, wouldn't take it. I even was like, oh, I'll send it to you for Christmas, which was like 8 months away. Was like, man, he said, you can't send me nothing for a year. And even then I would prefer, for my own sake and just to look good, that you never, ever give me a gift of any kind. And if you get caught doing that, man, you're done.
That's a good man.
You're absolutely done.
Man. Well, you're talking low-level corruption, though. Low-level corruption in America is almost unheard of. The only real corruption that we have is very high level, because that's where that's where you have the capability to.
We're not supposed to be talking about Trump anyway. I mean, I know,
and I'm going to reel this back in because there was a point. It's not a big deal, but actually, I want to make a promise to you, Ogre, because I'm with Britisher on this. I think there are legitimate things to complain about Trump, and I think that in all likelihood, there is some skeletons in his closet. So I will propose to you this: we will reconvene. We will have this discussion again, and British and I will take the time between now and then.
In all likelihood, you beat your wife.
You bastard! Who you been talking to?
I mean, I don't know what to say. Without,
okay, but here's what I'm
happy to do it later, though. I'll be happy to do it.
That's what I'm saying.
By all rights, I screw my dog. You could say the same thing. I mean, there's no way you can.
It's true, and it's probably very true. But what I'd like to do is reconvene at a future date. We'll give Britisher and I time to actually go and research the topic and be better prepared next time.
Both you boys. Okay, sounds good.
Because I agree with it. But what I'd like to do is kind of bring it back.
I'll put something in the side chat for Ogre to look at. It's just a flavor, but just let's move on. Yeah, it's very difficult to actually research something on the quick on something like that, because
it's also just by the heading. I mean, it's exactly what you were saying. That Trump donated to a Florida Attorney General.
If you put something like Trump in Google, you kind of get overwhelmed, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that we should go.
It's difficult to find any specific stories, because the moment you put Trump in with anything, you just get an avalanche of stuff.
Yeah, in our country, you're innocent till proven guilty, and if you get acquitted or if a case is dropped, you're not guilty of it in any way. Also, I'd like to point that out.
Yeah, okay. So in that case, we'll no longer talk about Hillary Clinton then, because
no, absolutely not.
Hold on.
If she's not under investigation, I mean, I mentioned things. I even said when the stream started, Brett, I was like, listen, I've got these things up right now, but you know what they mean? About the same thing as what you're sending me. Because did Hillary Clinton take an intravenous needle and inject Sean Lucas with something that gave him a heart attack? No. Doubt it. Was she connected with Seth Rich's murder? Probably not. Victor Thorne? I have no idea. I mean, these are things. This Walter Schlube? I don't know. Vince Foster? I have no idea. Is Webster Hubble her daughter's father? I can't prove none of it any more than this can be proven. So touche, sir.
Okay, so Hillary Clinton may not be under investigation, but you know who is Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And this goes back to what I was talking about earlier about how Hillary Clinton fostered an environment of people believing they were above the law and that corruption was a norm and that they could get away with shit. So you have Debbie Wasserman Schultz trying to get away with shit, colluding with the media, basically to screw over Bernie Sanders, to prevent him from getting the nomination, lying to the American people all the while. And like I said, I wanted to stretch this out, but one of the things that I kind of discovered, not really discovered, I mean, it's been news, but not very common news. Yay, he found his allowance. Anyway, I don't know what that was.
When it comes to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I mean, this is basically the head of the Democratic Party nowadays, is she?
Not anymore. She resigned.
She resigned. Okay, so but basically she was put in that position because she had been Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, and Hillary Clinton offered the vice presidency to the person who was the head of the Democrat Party, and then they put her campaign manager in as the new head of the Democrat Party.
Yes,
that's the way it was maneuvered, wasn't it?
You got
an educated man, Britisher. Yes, Donna Brazile was. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so she effectively was somebody who was clearly hardline on the side of Clinton, and by maneuvering her into position, she basically staged a coup within the Democrat Party. Because the moment she puts her key personnel at the very top of the hierarchy of the Democrat Party, she owns the machine. So that's effectively how she did it, and the way she got the chap who was the head of the Democrat Party to resign his position and to I don't know if he nominated her or if he just basically gave his blessings. But the way she managed to do that is by offering him a better position, and that was, of course, to be the running mate.
Correct. You're 100% right on that. The shuffle, and you bastard, I'm actually going to be doing an article on that in 2 days. The next one's on the.
I was just showing the Britisher because one thing I don't ever want to be is, I mean, you pointed something out, Britt, that is not cool to do in any kind of debate or any kind of logical life. So what I'm going to do is, and also I want to hold my ground. I want to be able to say, no, these things that happened on the tarmac with Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton and all this stuff is real. So what I'm going to do is I'm not only going to look into this, I'm going to dig deep because I never really have dug too deep, apparently. I've never seen this. And I'm going to, hey, I'll be honest. If Trump's done shit, man, like I was reading a little bit of this that doesn't look good, I mean, then he's a bastard too. I don't know what else to say.
Well, but I mean, in his defense, this tends to be, this tends to be much smaller scale stuff. Compared
I don't look like he's murdered anybody yet.
Yes, precisely. So compared to Hillary Clinton, it kind of shows that, to my mind, because I don't think this is the only such case. So to my mind, it's sort of that Trump seems to have a kind of history of kind of lower scale corruption, whereas Hillary Clinton, she's really up in the big league. I mean, Trump hasn't been taking, $10 million or whatever from Arab countries that are funneled through a charity, So in that regard, you have to look at the scale of it, and then you sort of find that, well, yes, this might be possibly, because again, it never got anywhere, but it might possibly be corruption. But compared to what we see with Hillary Clinton, it is of an altogether different scale. I mean, how much does one believe was actually laundered through the Clinton Foundation? I mean, it's in the hundreds of millions.
Yes, thank you. Lots.
You mean just from Haiti, or are we talking?
Yeah, not only that, Britt, you notice, I think you were saying it the other day, that just suddenly shut down. I mean, she's not loaned. There's nothing going through there anymore. I mean, you can look, it's public, I think some of it's public anyway.
Well, I think
they're not getting any money in there anymore.
Yeah, but I think it's more than likely just, it's more than likely sort of ticking over. Because imagine, as I say, if she becomes the Democrat candidate again in 4 years' time, suddenly that Clinton Foundation can start buzzing again.
Yeah, it's still there, but you're killing me with that. The idea of that is sending shivers up and down my spine.
Well,
why? It would guarantee Trump another 4. What a mistake that would be.
Look at her performance so far. Look at her public appearances. Look at her, do not tell me that is a person who seems to be decided on retiring.
Yeah, look how she slunk away that night and had old Podesta get up there for her because she was too big a coward.
That said a lot about her. But since then, she seems clearly to be in campaign mode again.
Well, I'll just say this about that. And why would it send shivers up and down my spine? I don't know if it would guarantee Trump anything because they stole 6 states, it looks like. Probably more. They're not wanting to turn in the voter information to be checked out.
Well, in all fairness, several Republican, I think 44 states don't want to turn in the required information. So that would also include Republican states.
Well, yeah, but British, they don't want to. They don't want you.
But what that is, there seems to,
anyway. Even a Republican state, you think they weren't doing stuff there too?
But there seems to be serious questions regarding the safety of that information. So it is not only a question of they're wanting to hide their corruption, which I agree with you is more than likely a top consideration of various governors and whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there does seem to be some experts that are saying, hang on, this is perhaps not the way to go about it. To basically create a complete honeypot of valuable information of millions and millions of voters is, given how we have found, not even the NSA computers to be safe, perhaps, heaping up a mound of such information is perhaps not a good idea.
Why not? Pepe sees everything, British. It doesn't matter. That's how I feel. So if they do it now or later, they need to look into that stuff. They need, if they're requesting to check into the voter rolls, it should be looked into. What would it matter? I mean, as long as the information is transferred from one to the other and isn't fooled with there. And in most cases, like in the state I'm in, Brett, most of the ballots were, you filled it in with a pencil.
Yeah.
So you can't really argue with stacks of paper that somebody goes back and count. Then you have to corrupt the person counting them. And a lot of cases they're double. I mean, they do have things.
I agree with you in principle. I think that these voting machines are an absolute nightmare. I think one should stick to pieces of paper and crosses in pencil. I think that the more old-fashioned you make the technology, the less possibility there is that somebody could really, really screw with it.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I think we're very much on both on the same side. That basically keep it pieces of paper, keep it crosses.
We just agreed on something.
We actually agreed on something.
I'll write it down on my calendar right here, mate.
So what you guys are talking about is basically kind of ties back into this lawsuit. This lawsuit is so crazy. The reason why I say it's going to tie me up for a while is because the tentacles from this thing go everywhere. What you're talking about right now, there's actually a section of the lawsuit that regards, or is one of the charges against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, that says that she was negligent in protecting voter information, etc. There was these three guys that worked for her called the Awan brothers, which this is what I'm researching right now for the second part of my series. Basically what these guys were IT specialists. They were Arab descent. I don't know. They were from Pakistan or something. They were somewhere in the Middle East. And what ended up happening was that they essentially absconded with a bunch of servers or just a shit ton of voter information, donor information, etc. Their private information. And despite the fact that they were under federal investigation, Debbie Wasserman Schultz continued to or hired again them and retained their services. These are people that were under investigation and had allegedly stole a treasure trove of private information. Who knows what they did with it, because they left the fucking country. And she continued to employ them. Why did she continue to employ them? And here's where it gets even crazier. The guy who supposedly had just started investigating their visa situation, like how they got into the country, and I'm still looking for verification on this, was one Barrington Weisenant, or he was part of the team. Barrington Weisenant, I'll never pronounce it right. He was a federal prosecutor who had just started with the Miami, the Attorney's Office, U.S. Attorney's Office, in its Major Crimes Unit. So if the rumors be true, and he was looking into the Awan brothers, that would tie him back to Wasserman Schultz. Well, this gentleman wound up dead with a bullet hole or head trauma, in quotes, washed up on the beach in Florida. Ironically, very similar to Seth Rich getting all shot up in D.C. under similar bizarre circumstances. But anyway, the point is that the tentacles from this single lawsuit go so far, and yeah, well, I mean, we're dipping our toes into some conspiracy theory waters.
But the lawsuit as such concerns itself, from what I understand. I'm not really up on this very much, but basically at the crux of it is how Clinton was favored over Bernie Sanders.
Correct. And what happened, the most recent thing was that they filed a motion to dismiss. All right, so Sean Lucas was the lawyer who died mysteriously of a drug overdose in his bathroom, which is entirely logical. It could have just been a drug overdose. I mean, the drugs that were in his system could entirely have killed him. But anyway, very bizarre, especially given all the other weird deaths that have come up.
I guess I didn't know there was drugs in his system, but I'm going to screen share this right here while you talk about him.
Sure. So anyway, yeah, there he is, attractive fellow. He was the first lawyer who was
Looks just like me.
He worked as a processor. Yeah, right. Clean shaven, maybe. Who worked as a process server for the law firm Beck. Jared Beck was the lawyer who was actually filing the lawsuit. Sean Lucas worked for him and was the one who presented he served the DNC with the lawsuit. But he did something wrong, and so that first service of the lawsuit was dismissed. The DNC was actually able to get it dismissed. Fast forward to September of 2016, because this was all done in July. In September of 2016, they served again, and this time everything looked okay, and it was fine, and so the case was going to go forward. Immediately, the DNC filed a motion to dismiss, and this is where I was going. What I was saying earlier about Wasserman Schultz is now the scapegoat, and I think the DNC is washing their hands of her. And I think that the only reason why she did the shit she did was because Hillary Clinton basically told her to, or created an environment where she felt she could get away with it. But the reason why I say that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is the patsy is because the DNC's lawyer, Bruce Spiva, and yes, I did send her the link. Bruce Spiva, whatever. He said in this motion to dismiss that essentially the accusations were not false, but there was no punishment under the law by which the DNC can be held responsible. So he basically said that what the attorney was alleging in the class action lawsuit, that the DNC conspired to screw over the Bernie Sanders supporters, was entirely true, but there was no way that they could be punished for it. Now, as the DNC is a corporate entity, it's a nonprofit organization, it would be difficult because you would have to prove that the DNC was acting against its fiduciary duties. However, in the case of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, that admission by the lawyer, I think, hangs her. I think it fucks her over royally because it basically says, yes, we know she violated the charter. We have evidence clearly that the plaintiffs are going to be presenting that in this lawsuit, that she violated the charter. And by doing that, she hurt the party. And when she hurt the party, she violated her fiduciary duties via a thing called ultra vires, which is a Latin word that means she went beyond the scope of her job. She broke the rules and hurt the DNC as a result. So I think this is spelling the end of the DNC, and why this lawsuit is such a big deal to me is because, as you pointed out earlier, Ogre, we have a two-party system. What happens when one of the parties gets imploded? Because this lawsuit has the potential to do that.
You're stuck with the other one. I don't know, though. Let's remember one thing. We call the Republican Party the grand old party, but the Democrats been around longer. They've been around for a long, long time. They've been through slavery. They've been through Jim Crow and sicking dogs on black folks in the South. They've been through all this stuff. And now, even now, they effectively blame most of that on Republicans, even when they've done some of that stuff when Republicans weren't even there. And so I think they'll still be here. But hopefully, in my mind, it would implode the bad that has become this party. I don't know if I even should have said it like that. I'm not sure that the Democratic Party has ever been a very good thing. I don't care how far back you go. But the people that are in it right now are definitely corrupt, social justice warriors, identity politic mongers, fear mongers, just a lot of them.
I think in that regard, more than likely what one would see as the Democrat Party, in terms of the political left, has more than likely already collapsed anyway. It's, as the ogre says, now what you have got is a kind of rump that is completely obsessed with policies that have not really got anything to do with supporting the poor. It's identity politics. It's no longer, because as I say, the idea, the division between the left and the right goes back a very, very long time. Already in the ancient world, you had left versus right. So you will always have, in a way, a political divide between the haves and the have-nots. And that is, one could say, that is the natural state of affairs in politics. It doesn't need to be socialist. That this is one of the things that kind of seems to have come in the last 100 years, that one suddenly has got this impression that left means socialist. You know, socialism only came about 100 years or so ago. So given that this entire idea is much, much older, the idea of the left standing for the people without there being the need for socialism is actually much older. So in that regard, that is their natural position, to effectively be a counterweight to the power of the wealthy. So that is perfectly understandable. But when do you actually hear them talking about any of that these days? In fact, when it comes to Hillary Clinton and her presidential campaign, she was actually the candidate who was with the corporations.
Yeah, pander to the rich.
Had the total inversion of what the Democrats are supposed to be.
Well, Britt, I have to interrupt, my friend.
Go ahead.
Because you had mentioned earlier, that she's woefully corrupt, etc. But the problem that was spinning around in my head back then, and has just cropped up again, is that to you and I and Ogre, we look at that and we go, yeah, this bitch is woefully corrupt. And yet almost 50% of the population of the United States doesn't believe the stories of Hillary Clinton. They think that she is...
Do they not believe or do they not care?
Isn't that irrelevant? Isn't that what is that called?
That's 22. But here we go. The thing of it is I'm not sure what the number is, but there is a large point. But Britisher, we also know there's a large group of people that no matter what any Republican does, they ain't gonna think he did wrong either. I think it's self-delusion. How's that?
That's a good word. Yes. So self-delusion could well play a significant part here, that one just doesn't want to believe that one's own side does anything wrong.
Unfortunately, I would like to throw out the probably controversial assertion that it's not an equal amount in terms of there are more that are left-leaning that kind of don't want to buy into the my candidate is actually a piece of shit reality, versus those that are right-leaning tend to take a more skeptical look at their politicians. I think we on the right, because I am definitely right-wing.
Well, maybe it's because I know a lot of righties. Sure, I don't see that myself, because I know a lot of Republicans.
I think that would just differ from time to time. It depends. As it stands now, we have got Hillary Clinton, the pretty much most corrupt politician.
Right.
All right. Let me decades. So therefore, obviously, with the left being seen to defend her, it is easy to argue that therefore the left is inherently so. I'm not sure, however, if that is the case, or if it is just that they are the ones who are at present defending the most corrupt.
Britisher and Ogre agree on two things on 7/6/2000. Yes, good point. Probably the most corrupt politician that I've ever seen. Her husband wasn't that corrupt. I'm sorry, folks. He did some things in the Oval Office, but he wasn't really that bad of a guy as far as a politician goes. He was a good politician.
Actually, he got a blowjob. Who gives a fuck?
If I can just digress briefly, there was a wonderful thing I saw when it comes to Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton when she was campaigning. You know how they sort of go out on the stump and they visit sort of all these various fairs and whatever, so they walked into this country fair, and it was just wonderful because Bill Clinton immediately was in campaign mode. Because everyone always said he was one of the best campaigners ever.
Still is.
He went up to this sausage stand, I think it was, and immediately he started engaging who was standing behind the grill, and he was talking about the sausages with him, and gesticulating and showing real excitement about this guy's produce.
Oh, and he went on to the pumpkins, and he was talking about how you grow a good pumpkin. And man, I know what you're talking about. That was great.
Within about a minute or two, he was handed a bun with a sausage, and he proceeded to stuff this sausage in his mouth and chew away absolutely joyously.
Yes.
Meanwhile, of course, Hillary Clinton had walked in with him. So the two of them came to stand in front of this grill. But whereas Bill immediately went into campaign mode, Hillary Clinton just stood there for perhaps half a minute looking utterly disinterested.
Well,
and then just turned on heel and walked away. Yeah. And everything about her face said, "This does not interest me."
Yep.
And what was so wonderful is she seemed to have forgotten that she was the candidate. People were not voting for Bill Clinton. And it was just one of those beautiful moments where you could just see why he got himself elected president
Twice.
quite easily, twice.
Yep. He did, and he did like
like
Barack Obama. Nobody knew who he was
couldn't.
when he first ran, mate. No one knew who he was. A governor from Little Rock, Arkansas. Nobody knew him.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
president
no,
is a showman.
Oh, by the
It
way,
was just
before I
one
get
of those
really rude,
beautiful
Richard,
moments.
this is Kim, and hopefully after we're done with the political stuff, I can keep her around. I'd like you to hear some of her ideas on feminism and stuff, man. It's right up your street.
Good evening, Kim.
Oh, and you got
I actually wanted to ask
you got to
Kim.
mute the chat there, Kim. Kim, this is Britisher. This is Kim. I just met her.
Hey, what's up?
Kim can't hear you.
Yeah.
Yes, you got to mute the chat. Kim, when you hear this, come over the chat. Mute the chat and listen to us in the room here, because there's a delay of like probably 8-10 seconds. I don't know why, but I think it's just time for it to signal up. But I did my diligence anyway, Britisher. This is Kim. Kim, this is Britisher. So I did my diligence. We can carry on. I just felt bad. She showed up a little bit ago, and I didn't even acknowledge her. Like, got to introduce folks.
I wanted to ask Kim, as a faithful vagina card carrying woman, did the argument that I'm a woman, it's time for a woman, did that resonate at all amongst you and or your peer group?
Absolutely not.
And you got to speak up, honey. I can't. Maybe it's just me being deaf as shit.
You know, you are very low on volume.
I was having troubles before, but no, it did not resonate at all.
Yeah,
what about amongst your friends?
Is that better at all?
Yeah, just get as close to the mic as you can, and I cranked you up in the sound room, so you will be as loud as you can be. But you were saying something to me. I don't think we were on air. That he was asking you, like, do you feel like, you know, I'm a woman, so I should be. You told me something about women that if you want to share it now, and that'll give them a little insight on how you feel.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, Hillary Clinton, for example, she's the worst example of human, let alone a woman, I've ever seen. As far as her, vagina card, and she, you know, it was her turn. No, not at all. She makes women look bad. As far as I'm concerned, I think women shouldn't be in power, because when they get in power, well, look at Merkel. Like, there's so many examples. I mean, there are some female leaders that I would back, like Le Pen, obviously, but they're few and far between. They make shitty bosses for chicks. They make shitty coworkers, and they're catty bitches. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm ashamed of my sex sometimes, but I wouldn't change it.
I'm going to translate for the chat because you're so quiet, most of them can't hear you. She's saying that women make shitty bosses because they're catty. Yeah. That's it in a nutshell. Women should not be in power because they make shitty bosses.
Well, that's a huge generalization. She was telling me, Kim, I'm not going to step on you. You said this. I hope you don't mind me saying it on air. I think you thought we were on air. You said you didn't think women should be voting, and that struck me. I don't really, agree with that, but you made some good points about it anyway.
Be loud, Kim. Be loud.
Okay, is that better?
Well, what I would ask is, so you don't have to shout, are you about as close to the microphone as you can get?
I am.
Okay, well, just do your best. Don't blow your voice out.
It's weird because it was working earlier, so I don't know what that's about. But I just have like a shitty iPad. So I could always just leave and then like.
No, chill out. I can hear you. Hey, I think everybody can hear you. I mean, just listen carefully, folks.
Yeah, we can definitely hear you.
Oh, forget it. Sorry. I would like to have some of her ideas, but you'll be on again, Kim, no matter what happens today. We need somebody on our side with all the stuff I'm not going to go into right now that the British and I were talking about off air yesterday. Things are getting a little crazy.
Why don't you reconnect?
Yeah, you know what? I can drop out and try to drop back in.
Yeah, do that.
If not,
do that.
Okay, I'll try.
Okay.
If one drops out, is it possible to drop back in?
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't you have to climb?
No, it's like us rednecks say, cut it on. Like you cut the light on, cut it on. You can't cut something.
Yes, but you're rednecks. You have family trees with no branches.
I don't know. Couple.
A couple? That's great. So anyway, what do you think about what I was saying earlier about Debbie Wasserman Schultz, where I think the DNC's throwing her under the bus? Does it sound reasonable? I mean, do you think that they would be like?
For me, they should throw it in a but Donna Brazile should be drawn and quartered, and you know all the stuff, and they all go back to the same thing. I remember Donna Brazile.
Well, hey, let's give some backstory. Let's give some backstory so people know who the hell Donna Brazile is. Holy shit, Kim,
that is much better. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
You guys were coming in low too, so yeah. Go ahead, you guys.
Ogre, give your Donna Brazile. Who is Donna Brazile spiel?
Donna Brazile is a horrible human being that used to be the head of the Democratic National Convention, and she was getting questions from CNN and giving them to Hillary at town hall meetings. She was taking and making sure that Bernie Sanders didn't get funds and was funneling those funds to. She was working because, as the Britisher said, the Democratic National Convention and the Republican National Convention never work for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. They are a think tank. They are a place where people can come to debate, as the Britisher said. It's not. They're not supposed to until there's only one left now. So once it gets to the Republican National Convention, they pick their candidate. Of course, you throw all the support behind them. Then really not then either, because if it's super PACs and stuff, you're supposed to leave some money. So what Donna Brazile did was gave all the money that she could to Hillary, gave her all the support, gave her all the aid and succor, and basically turned the cold shoulder to the old Bern and left him out in the wind. Man, and Bernie Sanders, anyway, I'm not going to go there because what a guy. He's such a weirdo, man. I mean, to me, if all that would have happened, I wouldn't have endorsed her. But that's who Donna Brazile is. She's a corrupt individual. And then she was on, I can't remember who was questioning her, but they were like, well, Ms. Brazile, we have the emails now from the WikiLeaks, and we can see that you did these things. You talk about doing them and how you give the questions to Hillary, and you got them from CNN. There's all this stuff. And she was like, well, I know you're trying to persecute me. I'm a Christian. I know something about persecutions. And I tell you what else. The Ruskies done hacked me. And then the daggone, and I mean, to even think about what she said.
That's a direct quote.
Oh, that was paraphrasing, but it was a pretty close.
That's pretty much a direct quote.
I'll never forget it.
Can I sort of ask, to what extent do we actually consider that these political parties are effectively untouchable? Because when they are actually sorting out the hierarchy, when they are sorting out the personnel within their own, aren't they to a certain extent a law onto themselves? A bit like, boxing federations or all kind of sports leagues, that basically the law has very much a kind of hands-off situation, as in, look, this is your own domain, you sort these things out. It isn't really for us to tell you how you run things. So if they are basically cheating within their own setting, can one really get at them? Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, and what I want to do is I want to throw an answer out there and then kick it off to Kim, because I think it looked like she had something to say too, and affirmative action and all that. I wanted to say that first of all, the answer. Oh, come on, brain, don't do this to me. Oh shit. Okay, there was two things. First of all, hey, give me a Reader's Digest. Get my brain back on track.
Basically, are these parties kind of a law unto themselves? That
thank you.
Isn't really supervised by the law.
Yes. All right. So historically, the answer to that question is historically, yes. The courts have a precedent to not get involved in the political process. An exception to that, of course, was Gore v. Bush, and we saw how that turned out. One of the things that's unusual about this lawsuit is the fact that it is asking the question: does the court have basically jurisdiction over a political party in the political
not over their own rules? That's the thing.
But
if they're using that money, a logical lion. Now let me say it this way: if they were taking that money and buying themselves houses and cars, getting their candidate, or spending it to get people to vote, in other words, giving people incentives to vote, which is illegal, something like that, of course. But if they're not following their own rules, in other words, they're supposed to split it up, but they're just not following their own rules. No, man. In other words, this lawsuit shouldn't be taking place in my mind. I'm glad it is, but why?
But hold on, I'll tell you why. Because you're
well,
committing
before you tell me why,
fallacies.
let me put it this way. If I had a swear jar in my house, and every time I said MF or whatever, I was supposed to put $1 in there. If I decided not to put $1 in it a couple times, the police shouldn't come and find me. And that's how I look at this.
Yes, but there's a fallacy there. And the fallacy is that the DNC publicly stated that they were running a fair, neutral, even-handed election, when in actuality they were not. And we have evidence on record to prove that they were not. So what it becomes then, instead of simply not following their own rules, now they're committing fraud because they are incentivizing people to donate to candidates and the organization as a whole under the guise that it's funding a fair and balanced election.
But couldn't they argue that this was a matter of interpretation, that in their interpretation this was fair?
No, because Article 5, Section... Oh, sorry, Kim, go ahead. There I go again.
I was going to say they already basically admitted to the fact that they could have gone behind closed doors and decided for themselves, but they didn't do it that way. But that's
bullshit.
Exactly.
Article 5, Section what? I'll look this up for you if you don't mind.
Okay, first of all, to address what Kim just said,
is that donations.
She's completely right that is their contention. However, they're completely wrong because Article 9, Section 5, I'm going on memory here, I might be wrong, but it is Article 9 of the charter says that they have to have all meetings, all discussions, all things having to do with the Democratic National Committee have to be done in public and no secret ballots are allowed, which destroys Spiva's argument that they could have had it behind closed doors. That destroys his first argument. His second argument is
they eliminated the charter. They could.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But see, I'll get to that in a second because I want to address what Ogre said. He's way off base, and I'll fix him in a second.
But first, I've already got a defense for you fixing me. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. But so the first...
to hear what he has to say.
The other line of bullshit is that there's no implicit promise that having fair and even elections was going to happen, that they could make the decision, that they have the right to make the decision. However, Article 5, Section 4 of their charter says that they will have even and fair elections, neutral elections, in no uncertain terms, black and white. And the person responsible for making sure that happens is ... the chairperson, which was Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So she clearly violated the charter. And here's the thing: if she had violated the charter, this is my legal opinion on the matter. If she had
I've got to
violated
respond to what you're saying here very quickly as soon as you're done.
Sure. If she had violated the charter knowingly, like she did, and Hillary had won, I don't think we would see an issue here because she had ultra vires. She went outside the scope of her position, but it didn't negatively impact the organization because she went outside the scope of her authority, and it hurt the organization. As we're seeing, this is what I'm talking about the trickle down effects. We're seeing it in the state elections where Hillary's all in for Hillary ended up fucking the DNC. I think that an argument can be made that because she made that decision, she violated her fiduciary responsibility as the chairman of the DNC. And because of that, she can be legally and civilly held responsible.
All right, well, here we go. By the Democratic Party, in other words, the Democrats could sue her, yes. But let me put it to you this way, sir. I've written mission statements. I've helped write constitutions and bylaws for churches and a church school. And here's the deal. Those are not... That's your mission statement to you, to your people. The only one you're accountable to hold to these types of things. Now, if they're spending, if they're getting too much contributions, because there's caps on that, if they're breaking the law, I got to say it again. Well, then the law can come in. But if they're not breaking any legal law, they're only breaking their bylaws. They're only not following their mission statement. Then the only people that could sue them would be internal. Because it's nobody's business. They could change these bylaws anytime they wanted. They can do whatever they want.
I would disagree because...
Well, you can disagree, but that is...
You're talking about nominate... Well, no. I'm just saying, isn't it because it's a political... It is fraud to, say you're non-biased and then have a candidate take a bunch of money.
But it's fraud to who?
It's a political...
It's fraud to who?
To the people who donated money, thought it was going to be fair, who didn't think it was going to be them.
Well, in that case, I'll say it again. Then people involved in that. In other words... if I made a charter or if I had bylaws for a church school and then I broke the bylaws intentionally, the people that pay for their kids to go there could sue me. I'll say it again. That's what I was saying.
I hear
could
your
someone
point,
else come from the outside and say, well, let's sue this person? Good luck.
But Ogre, that's what's happening. The people that are suing are members of the Democratic Party.
Yes.
There's 150 plaintiffs.
And isn't it a little bit different when you're talking about a political candidate, you know?
One at a time.
But
I mean, trust me, I'm not a Bernie bro at all. You know, I'm conservative, have been since I don't know, was like 23. But I think because isn't it because it's a political, you know, you're is that different? I mean, to me it seems different than running a school. I hear the point, it's a valid point.
Yeah, and shout out Brett whenever you want there. You're saying something in the side chat. I think that's a good point.
I would say what I would compare it to again is I would go to sport, because I sympathize a lot more here with the Ogre's argument, and that is, let us assume for a moment that, for example, you have got a sports game, whether it be football or, you know, real football or American football. You say you've got a player cheating and he thereby secures an advantage. So he gets some points or goals for his team. That would be seen as something that would fall completely within the purview of the sport itself. It would not fall within the purview of law that the other team could then sue the team that had gained an advantage. And in that regard, you would have to look at these candidates as effectively being, you know, rival sports teams that are vying for, you know, the championship. So in that regard, if they break their own rules, that falls within their own purview. So it wouldn't be that it is only for people who are members of said sport, or, you know, said sports organizations or said political party. It would not only be only for them to be able to take action, but it would be only for them to be able to take action within their own organizations, within their own disciplinary processes. So that effectively, if you have a sportsman who has cheated, then it may be that retrospectively, the league can take action against said particular player, that he perhaps is banned for a few games or something like that. But it happens, effectively the jurisdiction is within the organization itself, within the league system itself. And I would compare that to the political process, that if, in this case, a politician within a party has seen to perhaps have been cheating in order to gain an advantage, much like that player, it is then for the organization itself to discipline that particular politician. But it is more than likely not possible for anybody either outside of the political party or inside of the political party to step out into the kind of judicial process and then try and sue for that, because strictly speaking, it's a breach of internal rules which are policed by the organization itself. I'm sorry, I know this kind of sounds terribly technical, but that's the way I view it.
And it's
No, I'm following.
It'd be like,
I'm following,
if we had a club and
I had a good point. I just lost it.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, girl. I can.
No, I lost it.
I don't have my speakers up very loud. Rock and roll. If I cut you off,
it's okay. Now it fell out of my brain, so you're fine. Go ahead.
Well, British,
think of it again.
I'm going to jump in because I think Ogre's gonna side. Hey, Wolfshot. Yeah, I think Ogre's going to side with Britisher, and Wolfshot, I'm sorry, I gotta spit this out.
Yeah,
before it falls out of my brain too.
Down the third thing in the road you agreed on. Wrote it down.
But Britisher, the problem is that you're wrong, my good sir, about how fiduciary laws and how breach of fiduciary.
Cheeky bastard, Brett.
It's just simply the way the law works. It's not the case. So I'm going to give you two examples. The first is, let's say that you have two companies, two sewage plant companies. One has specific bylaws that say you must put your poop in a can and put that can out in front of the building. The other one has nothing implicitly written. Okay? let's say the manager of each one of these factories just pours the shit out the back. Manager of the company that has the explicit written instructions in the bylaws has just committed what's called an ultra vires act. That means he has acted outside the scope of his position as listed by the bylaws. He is then responsible and liable for any damages caused by his decision to pour that poo outside. The other guy who did exactly the same act had no specific jurisdiction regarding the spilling of poo by the bylaws. So the company could be sued for damages, but not him individually. The difference is, in case A, both the company and the manager could be sued because the company caused damages through their representative, the manager, and because the manager acted in an ultra vires act, he violated his fiduciary duty and wasn't representing the company in a proper facet, therefore he could be sued too as well, or as a co-defendant.
No, I understand the point.
Okay. So that's essentially the case with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, is that because she broke the charter, she violated her fiduciary duties through an ultra vires act. If she had done all this stuff and was protected by the charter, she would have been fine. But she went outside the purview of the charter. So she broke a fiduciary duty. And the person that she broke that with are all the members of the Democratic Party. All of them. There are millions of them. Millions.
But I'll say when you compare it with the kind of, you know, sewage or rubbish company or whatever, there is basically you're looking at a third party that is damaged. Whereas if you're looking, basically you would look at the public. It would basically be more than likely the municipality that would basically take action, because, you know, you're basically pouring rubbish all over the place. So they will find who is responsible, whether the blame falls upon the rubbish company or the sewage company or upon the company that is discharging the waste. That then follows the principles that you laid out. I perfectly understand that. But when it comes to a political party like that, it isn't as if there is an outside authority or whatever that is damaged and therefore seeks to represent the public and therefore seeks to intervene.
But you're missing my point. You're missing my point about the millions.
An internal matter of that party.
But that's my point, Britisher, is the internal of the Democratic Party is millions of people.
Yes.
So any one of them who donated can sue.
There is nothing to say that they can't take disciplinary measures within their own party to basically either depose the person they don't want, or or basically put in some kind of disciplinary measure against that person. But that
they can,
but that means they have to kind of do it within their own structure. If they can't
but that doesn't matter.
Their own structure, then, well, you know, then it may just be tough luck.
The fuck are we arguing?
No. Hold on.
No, what are we arguing? I need to know what we're arguing.
All right, I'll give you the background and then
I'll quickly give her idea. Should the DNC be sued because monies allocated that should have been divided one way were divided more leaning toward any direction? In this case, it went more toward Hillary Clinton than it did Bernie Sanders, and among other things, but the money went that way. Should I don't know if your only point lying, because you're in this particular lawsuit's being brung up by the Democratic Party, so I don't know. I guess they could see what happens in court, but can you sue someone for breaking their own rules? I guess is the question.
But you're missing the point. It's not just. I don't think you both are missing. Well, hold on. Yes,
I just disagree with it, Lion. I don't. Maybe missing your point. You're just wrong. To quote you.
You missed one key point, though. You lay out the good foundation, but you're missing the straw that breaks the camel's back, and that's where. They elicited donations under the guise of a fair and even-handed election, as per their charter and Debbie Wasserman Schultz's own admissions, as well as top DNC officials.
You just said the magic words, their own charter, sir. So I mean,
but it doesn't matter. But hold on. You're missing the point. Under the guise of a fair and even election, they elicited donations. If I told you,
I think the British and I think we all said that if they did something illegal, but now we're not going by the Article 9, the Article 5, Section 9, and Article 9, Section 5 that you sent me. I looked at it. That's the DNC. We're not going by that. We're saying now they committed fraud. That's a different story.
But you understand that when a company breaks its rules that it has written for itself,
depends upon if they're private or if they're a publicly traded company now, sir. No, we're going all over. We're like shotguns now. We're going all over a bunch of things.
That's not true.
Look, I've owned. Okay, all right. Good Lord, you must be a lawyer and a politician and probably a scientist.
Can I introduce?
No, but I was pre-law.
I can tell pre-law, but yes, British, go ahead.
Can I introduce an example here? So basically, in order to kind of continue the tortured sports analogy that I'm trying to put, trying to continue here. Over here with football, or soccer, as you people torturously call it, when it comes to the Premier League here, which is the kind of the top division, basically any club will basically the higher they finish in the division, the more money, the more prize money they actually get. So not only do they get, does the winning team get the title, and do they qualify for very, very prestigious and very, very highly money-making, highly profitable sort of European division, so they can go and play Real Madrid and stuff like that. Not only do they get that, but within the English Premier League itself, they get prize money for where they finish. So basically, what you are saying is that Liverpool Football Club should be able to sue Manchester United because in one match, Manchester United scored a goal with a handball, which is illegal under the rules of football, and therefore Manchester United finished 1 or 2 points higher in the division and therefore got more prize money than Liverpool, and that Liverpool should then be entitled to go to court and basically file damages because they didn't get that money. Now the thing is, no court would go anywhere near this.
I don't see the link. We're talking about sports ball compared to like an election. You're talking. I mean, sports. Well,
no. It's the reason I bring it up is because sport is something that runs. We all understand that sport has got very particular rules, and that they are kind of governed by divisions,
nominating officials and electing officials to lead us, quote unquote, lead us.
Nobody intervenes. The kind of the law isn't directly applied to those things. And in this regard, we are looking at a political party that governs itself in the same way as a sports league would, or something like that,
but
where pretty much
when you lie
about it, stays hands off. And what I'm saying is, as you say, that people may lie and may cheat, but in a way we expect politicians to do that in the same way that we expect sportsmen to cheat and lie and get any
politicians,
not companies,
take money from people. Yeah.
The point is that the DNC is a company. It is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Therefore, it has to follow the same rules as other companies, which means if they violate their charter, they have broken fiduciary duties.
What'd you do for 4th of July? Nah, I'm just fooling around. But I don't know how much further we could go on this, because I think
we're disappearing into detail to the point where even some people on the panel seem to be losing the will to live.
Yeah, I was considering that I might want to drink some hemlock, Britisher. No, not like that.
You're doing the full Socrates here, are you?
Yeah, well, I am a philosopher, so that's why I went with the hemlock, I would say that you should have put in for an evangelist logical line, because you really make a solid apologia, even if you don't know what you're talking about. In this case, I'm sure you do. But Yeah, as far as
you definitely fight his corner. There's no doubt.
Yeah, he's good.
I don't know if that was a dig at me or just unintelligible.
Of course it was.
I think it's the passive aggressive nig.
But that said, here's the facts. They're getting sued. So, that's.
Oh,
that's
right.
happening.
Oh, right. Okay. So, real in closing, if I
That's
may,
happening. Yeah.
the reason why I say that this case, it could potentially shake up politics in America for a long time, is because there's a lot riding on this. If the judge agrees with the plaintiffs and dismisses this motion to dismiss, ironically, and this lawsuit goes forward, that's bad news for the DNC. However, if the judge sides with the DNC and dismisses the lawsuit right now, the judge is basically agreeing with the DNC that they can violate their charter and there's nothing, the judge is agreeing with you guys. They can violate their charter and there's nothing anyone can do about it. And that will destroy people's trust in the DNC. So that will kill the DNC. I mean, I don't see a winning situation
Not just
for the DNC.
I think it would destroy trust. I mean, it's as if politicians could be less trusted, but I believe that they're trusted more. Well, Trump's trusted more than the media right now. No matter what the fucking stupid lying.
Yeah, but
that's like saying more people like me than Satan.
Right, it's true.
Yeah, it's by about the same margin too.
And honestly, I used to say with the DNC leaks, I'm like, I don't really care who fucking leaked them. It could have been Satan for all I care. I don't give a fuck if it's Russia. Is it true or not? Is it true? Sorry,
I'm with you on that. It doesn't matter how the information got there of any kind. In my heart, I just think that they should be exposed. If the lawsuit brings about an end of the Democratic Party. Also, I got to say this. Man, we need to have at least 2 strong ones. And we should have, it'd be nice if we had like France, Britt, how Jeremy was telling us that they have how they had 2 elections because they had so many that you have to win a majority, but they had so many parties, nobody won a majority.
2 rounds, yeah.
And so that's, to me, that's ideal. That would be ideal.
No. I would not want, I mean, it's not ideal because the party, like with what happened to Le Pen, they even said if she won, the rest of the people in the parties would go up against her for anything, and it cut me. I mean, I get the sentiment. I think ideas are great, but when look at, I mean, I'm just
especially when there are ideas, right, Sweetness? Is that what you mean?
Our ideas? What do you mean
well, you said, let me explain something to you. You said ideas are great, but if I apply, I've said this before, but if I apply to a really good college like Michigan State University and I got and they send me a letter back and I'm reading it, it says, Mr. Ogre, we've reviewed your application for acceptance here, but do I read the rest of the letter or throw it away? So the thing of it is ideas are great and we're not used to it. We need to have at least 2 parties. I believe that. That's just
absolutely
objective.
Even though they're the same, the heads of the same snake in my mind. But that's why, I voted for Trump because I didn't feel like he was one of those. But I mean, I don't know if those systems worked in Europe. I think they worked for a while. Looks like, I don't know.
Wait a damn minute. What if the letter said, but we want to offer you a full scholarship?
Well, then I just threw away a good letter. They'd send me another one. But is a conjuncture. It's just my long way of saying that but's a conjuncture. It takes you from where you're going to somewhere else. It really does.
My butt's not a conjuncture.
So even if it did say the scholarship, it's taking me away from the first. And it don't matter. I was just kind of, because you mentioned it, I get digs at people when I can. And when I hear, well, we need a lot of ideas, but I love the idea of what they do. How many parties do they have, Britt? Do you even know? I think there was like 7 or 8 major ones that were going at it in the election.
Yeah, look at all those parties, and they still fucked off. They still did the wrong thing.
Well, but they did the wrong thing insofar as you're concerned because they didn't vote for the candidate you were backing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
I just think that they can.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Just have Macron, who's a carbon copy of what. Is what is wrong with Europe.
I am very dubious of Macron, but I don't think that was necessarily the fault of the election system that they've got.
No, hold on now. I want Wolfshot to jump in on this. It sounds like she is not a fan of Le Pen.
It wasn't about me. I don't live in France. It's not up to me.
Fan of what?
What am I voted for? But if they wanted things to change, maybe they might have wanted something different.
What am I a fan of?
Marie Le Pen.
Marie Le Pen.
I don't give a fuck. They do what they want to do. That's not my business.
She was just agreeing with us.
Yeah, that's not my business. They elected who they wanted to elect.
It was surprising how unpopular she was, in my humble opinion. I was under the impression that she was actually a contender.
Well,
yeah, me too. And I thought, a feminist would go for it because she's a woman, that vagina privilege and all.
I actually, did 1 or 2 videos about the whole Le Pen phenomenon, and I didn't make myself very popular because I was one of the people that said, yeah, she's going to lose. And it's remarkable how people on the right, particularly in America, didn't like the idea of being told that Le Pen wasn't going to win. But to anyone to anyone who actually sort of knows European politics, and particularly anyone who knew in advance what the French election system was like, and who understands the history of Le Pen's party and things like that, it was quite clear that Le Pen was not going to win. So
Britisher, don't bullshit like that. Nobody understands European politics.
Well, there are those who live in Europe. But when it comes to Le Pen, what seemed to baffle a lot of people was the fact that they heard that Le Pen was the single most popular politician. And that is true. She is the single most popular politician.
I just heard that she was a Nazi.
But yes, that is one of the problems. That you have got. She is the leader of the Front National, the National Front, that was founded by her father, and that has got some serious problems in its past where
it's
they
baggage. Yeah, I understand.
Fascist.
I know what you're referring to. Yeah.
So in that regard, they were virulently anti-Semitical. It really there was real baggage in that party. Now, when she took over,
she was like a real Nazi or something.
Well, no, as I say, when she took over, did set about reforming the party, but you have to understand that Jean-Marie Le Pen, her father, ran the party for something like 35 years or 40 years before she took over, and has then now been running it for about 5 years. So if
they were literally Hitler.
So if you've got a party that really was pretty fascist, and then someone comes in and tries to kind of reform it and brings in changes, you're looking at this body of this party and you're going, okay, they have now made changes. This does seem for the better, but what do I still think of this party as a whole? Do I really think that all the bad people who were there for 40 years have suddenly left? And now it is being populated by completely new people who are all much more centrist.
Hard to believe.
That was the thinking on the part of the French. And what happened when you actually looked at the French election, when she came through in the first round, and she didn't really come through decisively. She scraped through in second position, only a fraction of a % ahead of her next rival. Once she came through that, she basically resigned her position as leader of the Front National. But basically she said, I'm no longer the leader of this party. You are now voting for me alone, Marine Le Pen. And on election night, when they were defeated, there were the people who were in her circle who were already saying that they think what will happen next now is that they will create a new political movement, which may be based partly on the Front National, but won't be the Front National anymore. Because I think they've kind of realized that as far as France is concerned, this brand of party, simply due to its past, is too toxic, and people will not go near it. So much so that, as I say, Marine Le Pen had to distance herself from her own party in the hope of gaining some more votes for the second round. So when it comes to the French, it wasn't really just that, oh, well, no, they don't know what's good for them and whatever. They pretty much, more than likely, the voters as a whole, felt between a rock and a hard place. You know, we've got this puppet who has been set up, who clearly is a product of the socialists and conservative parties, who have basically created a puppet candidate who can step in should it look as though Marine Le Pen will defeat the two main establishment parties. So we've got the choice between a puppet or between someone who seems to be sort of right of center, but seems to be kind of weighed down with a party that, to all intents and purposes, is still largely fascist. So we've got a choice between these two. What are we going to do? We too are beginning to get sick and tired of the European Union, but that would mean voting for the Front National, and who knows what the hell they might do within the first few days of coming to power. Or we have to swallow this bitter pill and vote for someone who is rampantly pure, pro-European, but at least he isn't the leader of a party that has a past like this one. So that really was the conundrum that the French people were faced with. And that's why it came out in such overwhelming numbers in favor of Emmanuel Macron. Because, you know,
There's a lot known about.
It was pretty much 2/3 to 1, wasn't it?
I didn't get that last part.
Yeah, at the end it was.
Going to say,
it was 2 to 1.
Was Macron really known that well? I mean, was he known? Is he? What he kind of? I don't. Like I said, I only.
Yeah, he married his teacher or something when he was like 12 or something like that.
Right, but I mean, in the political sphere,
in politics,
not his
wasn't she like 70 at the time?
Well, not quite.
107, I thought. It was a lot. I know it was old.
That's personal.
But when
you can't. If you're going to hold Marine Le Pen's, father's party.
Yeah. When it comes to Macron, you have to understand that they were presenting him as a complete new boy, because they realized they realized that that just like in Britain with the Brexit, just as in America with Trump, that there was a mood against the political establishment. They'd realized this. So they kind of set up Macron as he's a completely new guy. He's not the establishment. He's the anti-establishment candidate. That's the way he was sold. Even his party had only been founded something like 12 to 18 months before the actual elections. But as far as I'm concerned, it was a complete charade that basically the socialists and the conservatives got together and created this new party as a kind of like a spare tire. Should they realize that they won't manage it, then they can kind of propel. They can propel this thing and use this as the tool in order to defeat her.
Yeah. I just want to ask a quick question when you're done, Brett? No, when you're done,
what is very telling about Macron is that one of the things that was kept very quiet was that before he actually went and founded this party, he was actually the finance minister of the French government. So this idea that the fact that he was completely new, that he was the new broom that was going to sweep everything clear, he was part of the political establishment right from the off. But it was sold in a way that kind of, allowed it to appear that he was the complete outsider who was stepping in with a fresh pair of eyes and was going to take care of things. So one tried to satisfy this desire for an anti-establishment candidate by giving people what sort of on the surface appeared to be an anti-establishment candidate, but someone who was actually deeply, deeply rooted within the political establishment of France.
And they'll do that. I
gotta see if I can find Jeremy. I just wanted to ask a quick question. I know that probably elicited a response from you two, so I'll let you respond to what he just said. But does anyone here consider themselves alt-right? I just was wondering.
I do.
Yeah.
Okay. It was funny and you do too,
I'm
Logical
not,
Line. I didn't know you did Logical, but I told my wife, I was like, I think the young lady was alt-right.
I don't know.
Could I ask, what does it mean? Because people want me to believe it's Nazis and whatnot. What is it to be alt-right? I don't even know.
Yes, how would you define it yourself?
I would define it as, okay, first of all, we're nationalists. I would say we're nationalists first. I think I'm an individualist. I'm obviously an American. I judge people as I meet them, how they treat me. And like Nazis really, I think there's a big difference between white supremacists and white nationalists. I think that I've kind of seen the cultural Marxism become so freaking hot and heavy, and it's so pervasive that conservatives they're boring, they're tired, they're old. It's time for something new. And once you get called a racist, is the longer you spend defending yourself, it doesn't matter. They don't care. They don't really think I don't even think they care about that. It's just a matter of like take you off your feet. So I think with the upstart of like the alt-right, it's just an unapologetic way of saying we're Americans. We're proud of America.
Okay, so nationalists, I want to keep you really on track. Help me understand, because I'm Jewish, and I hear alt-right.
Yeah, please don't ask me to like speak for alt-righters, because I don't.
No, I'm not asking you to speak. In fact, Britisher put it best. I just want to keep you on right here and just define it as you see it. No one here would ever ask you. I think I can speak for Logical Line. No, I can speak for the Britisher Line. We won't ask you to speak for anyone but yourself. So you're national. You believe in nationalism. Tell me
nationalism should come. I would say that the people who stood for Trump,
Daddy.
the people who voted for Trump were not just white people. They were people that saw issues that other people want to just kind of gloss over and ignore and act like they're not problems. And we can't sustain the whole world. We just can't do it. Other countries are allowed to be nationalistic, then they're fine, and they're not being pushed with the multiculturalism, diversity. I think people should be able to choose, the areas. We hear it in coded wording all the time. When I was younger and I lived in the Bay Area and I bought my first home, I bought it in a place called San Ramon. And I always used to say, I'll take a dose of pretension over a dose of crime any day.
What did you call the barrio? You said the Barrett. What did you call it?
I said I'll take it's called San Ramon. I say I'll take a.
No, you said you bought a house in the barrio, but you pronounced it.
No. I bought a house in a really nice area, not the barrio. It's called San Ramon. Oh, okay. It's just in the Bay Area. It's not. It's just a small, really.
Oh, I think you must have said Bay Area, and when you ran it like that, I heard you say in the barrio.
The barrio.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm from the barrio. Yeah, no, it's from the Bay Area. It's just a small, very, very quaint, there's no crime. It's basically no crime. Across the Bay, you have the exact opposite. And people say things like they're looking for good schools or they want to move out of the crime area,
So in your feeling of alt-right, I guess I'm just going to try to get you to go to this because I got to know, is there anything, when you say nationalist, if there is anyone of a different race, and they're nationalists too. Let's just call them second generation Americans, but they maybe don't look the way, or they speak two languages. They might be Polish. They might be
nationalists for America, the country they're born in. Or
in the alt-right philosophy, I'm asking you to speak to yourself. Does it matter to you what color somebody is or what race they are?
No, not at all. It really doesn't. Not if they're good people. Not if they're good people. It matters how they act and what they say. Like I said, I judge people individually, and if they're good people, no, it doesn't matter, not at all.
Can I ask you? Do you think that Donald Trump is alt-right?
Oh God, no. He's not.
No. Okay.
No, he's.
But what I mean is, you would, from my perspective, I would regard Trump as a nationalist. So given that you kind of, given that you kind of have mainly defined it along the grounds of nationalism. So what would be the difference in order to kind of try and refine it, that we kind of understand it as precisely as we can? What would you see as the difference between Trump and being alt-right?
Oh, what would be because, well, first and foremost, he's a Zionist. So.
Okay.
Hold on. What's the distinction there? What exactly does that mean? How does a Zionist? How is that anathema to alt-right?
Well, Zionists are for what Zionist means. They really
they want
Israel as a state.
For Israel, it's for Israel. Yeah, they always vote for Israel's needs, which I'm don't
hate me, white nationalists or alt-righters, whatever you call it, whatever it is called. But I would consider myself a Zionist because I believe that
Yeah.
the Jewish people should have a place.
Oh, yeah, I
I'm
think
not
so
going to go
too. I'm
into
not
who's lived there
anti-Zionist.
longer because Jews and Arabs have lived there, but I consider myself. But Zionist, this is what I'm trying to say about that. I think I'm trying to look up a definition for alt-right, and all I'm getting is like what someone is saying about the alt-right. I'm not getting from you so far that you're racist or want other people that don't look like you to be out of your country, and that's kind of what I'm getting.
Well,
They want to define it
I
as.
mean,
Help me out,
who
Brett.
wants to practice that?
Well,
I mean,
Kim,
don't
I
you
want to
have
know
a
the
question
distinction.
about the alt-right, British. I've never really
The-
had a chance to talk to anybody that said they were alt-right.
Well, have you
Richard
tried?
Spencer
Have you
says he's alt-right.
What's the distinction? What is the fucking distinction? What is the distinction between a Zionist and an alt-right? Why can someone who is a Zionist not also be alt-right?
Oh, I think they.
You
From
can't
what I'm
be,
hearing, I guess
because
they
they're
could be.
nationalists too.
But
So
I don't
basically,
understand.
is your
Can you not
argument?
support
Is,
countries?
can I just? Is your argument that if one is a Zionist, then basically one has one has kind of one's feet in two different camps? Is that what you're arguing? That basically one is then nationalist for the USA, but one also has another interest.
Let's do Kim. And that was my question as well. Kim?
She's muted. She may have stepped out for a second, and I don't want to beat the girl.
Sorry, I had a phone call.
Okay, and I don't want to know. I hope nobody's gonna try to beat you up.
Parole
Here. I just want to say it again. I've never had a chance to ask these questions. So, did you hear the question that they had for you?
I didn't hear. I heard something about you can't.
Okay,
What's the
if I
difference
can just-
between a Zionist and a nationalist?
No,
Well, there's Zionists are nationalists. They're mostly nationalists for Israel, and that
okay.
that can. I mean, can you kind of see where if someone is a leader here and has dual citizenship for Israel and for America, a lot of times their well-being, their first priority will be for Israel, and I think that's great in Israel for Israel, but a lot of times it subverts and kind of gets us in situations.
So what you
know,
would
I
be
mean,
saying
I
is that they had
feelings.
divided loyalties.
Yes, correct.
Well,
So
they
in
simply
your
have
mind,
priority.
so in your mind, Trump would have divided loyalties because in one moment he is a nationalist in terms of the USA, but he is
Well, I don't
also a
think he did.
Zionist and therefore concerned with the interests of Israel.
Well, I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing as long as he puts America before Israel. Like he can care
Okay.
about Israel. That's fine. I just don't want Israel to come first in America. That's it.
Well,
Okay,
and for
but-
myself,
so
I
this-
feel I'm that way too. America comes first for me. I should say that. Go ahead, Brett.
So basically,
We're Americans. Well,
yeah. No, I perfectly understand that. It's so basically when you're saying that Trump isn't alt-right because he is both a nationalist but also a Zionist. So basically, what you're
well,
saying
he said he's
is
a globalist and a nationalist. So
you cannot.
I mean,
you
I just don't
cannot
think
be,
he's. Go ahead.
You cannot be a Zionist or in this case a globalist and a nationalist and be alt-right. So basically, if one distills it down to its sort of ultimate thing, that basically as long as you are just nationalist, that would make you alt-right.
I don't know. I mean, for me, that's how I fall. I'm a girl, so I'm kind of a pacifist. I'm not really into the.
I say the reason
I
the reason we're trying to kind of nail it down so much is because we've heard a lot. Mainly we've heard alt-right being thrown around as a kind of accusation, but particularly the left like accusing people whom they don't like as being alt-right.
Of course, yeah.
So basically, all sorts of people get sort of written off as this person is alt-right. You don't need to listen to this person. So this is really the first time that we've kind of spoken to someone who identifies themselves as alt-right, and therefore we would be keen to know what you think is the kind of essence of being alt-right.
I think
so
the essence.
there isn't really any judgment involved. It's just a matter of being curious.
Oh, I understand. I'm not nearly as articulate as, I'd say 99% of the people in the alt-right, and I'm a girl, so I would be shunned for speaking for it anyway. So it's fairly new. It's a fairly new movement. I think we're evolving. I think that it's people who are sick and tired of, being lied to by the media, being told that you should be ashamed of who you are. You should be ashamed to be white. everybody's allowed to be proud of who they are, and I believe that they should be, including white people. You know.
So
If
so
we're
do
Nazi,
you
Nazi,
see
Nazi, Nazi.
so do you see at heart the alt-right in your understanding to be a kind of movement that has sprung up in reaction to kind of identity politics and social justice movement and things
Yeah, I
like
think that's fair. I think that's definitely fair. The new
that?
alt-right, it's fair.
So would
say
you
that,
say
yeah.
they are kind of the polar opposite to that? That, you know, basically they've kind of set themselves up in direct opposition to that, and that is almost
Globalism and
okay. Again, that's an
yeah.
interesting one there, because what do you see as globalism?
Open borders, just
Okay.
unvetted, you know, immigration, just one, you know, one world, just like EU is a good example of that.
Yeah.
Can I jump in, Brosher?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, please do. Please do.
Yeah, but you're not gonna like it when I do. I have a couple of questions for you. Do you think Donald Trump
mic was broken.
Thank the Lord. Do you think Donald Trump is a nationalist?
Yeah, you're really.
I don't know. I don't know the man.
In your estimation,
I would like to think he is. Yeah, I would like to think he is, but I don't know. I would like to think he is.
Do you also believe him to be a globalist?
I don't know. He made a comment once, I'm a nationalist and a globalist. I don't know what that meant. It could have been just taken out of context. I'm not sure. I don't know, man. The man's an enigma.
Do you feel that those two terms, those two ideologies, are almost polar opposites?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in ways I can. Yeah. I mean, not really, because it's not as if, you know, I'm against global trading. You know, I'm not against that. I'm against globalists running us, and
right,
who don't have our interest in hearts. And I think a nation's country is obviously going to should have its own nation's interest at hearts. And when that falls to the wayside, we have, you know, migrants.
So you don't think much of the Trilateral Commission or the CFR?
No, I do not.
The alt-righters in general would say that, you know, the Trilateral Commission is a bad thing, and that they don't like the Bilderbergers, or that I mean, they fall in that category.
I don't know if they even pay that much attention to the fucking Bilderbergers thing, but probably. I mean, I know Chris Cantwell just went to the Bilderbergers and stood outside with the bull. I'm not sure. Like, I think, you know, I'm not the best person, obviously, to answer.
Well, the only person I ever listened to that was alt-right was Richard Spencer, and I could stomach about 5 or 10 minutes of it, and it doesn't resonate with me.
Right, I hear that. Yeah, he's an acquired taste. You know, I would I really like Black Pigeon Speaks. He's really good. He's not alt-right at all. He's very, like, lays it out. I also like Stephen Molyneux. You can listen to him.
Okay, so as I say, that's perhaps a good way of trying to kind of sort of finagle it out. You know, who would you see as people who are alt-right? I'm not, you know, just so we can kind of get a sort of a reading of, you know, what it means. Who would you see as sort of alt-right?
I think you just mentioned one, but I didn't get a chance to catch it. You said somebody said
the right stuff. The right stuff.
Oh, the right stuff.
The right stuff. Pull that up, would you?
Yeah, I'm doing it.
All right.
Really show.
Hey, can I throw something out there?
Of course.
Okay. First, stop beating yourself up, damn it, because your opinion is equally as valid as anyone else's here. That's why you're here. I want to know stuff from you, what you're thinking, etc.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, because seriously, you're here because you're very intelligent and you're quick-witted and stuff, and that's awesome. I don't know why the fuck Ogre's here, but, you know, whatever. Secondly,
my channel.
oh yeah, whoops. I guess it is your channel.
Go smoke another bong, dude. You must be taking that. What is it over there? DMT. Go take some more DMT.
No, man. Just weed.
But whatever you do, don't say anything critical about lions, or he'll send you a terrifying meme.
I'm derailed. I passed the torch.
He is like a big cat. It's easy to get him distracted. He get thrown a ball of string here. But go ahead. What were you saying?
I'm fucked now. You're
the one mocking the guy that's usually the host on here, mate. That's probably. You ever see a guy named Bill Hicks? I like the way that he dealt with hecklers probably really well.
Bill Hicks?
Yeah, no,
Didn't
but carry
he
on.
become
You were,
Alex
you were
Jones?
making some good points.
So
I would say the same thing. Stand up for what you believe. I like everything you said about you being alt-right. I don't have a problem with. It's just when I hear Richard Spencer, and I'm desperately trying to find the right stuff. I put the right stuff alt-right, and it looks like Mike Enoch in Seventh Son. Is that who I'm looking for?
Yeah. If you go to YouTube and you just type in, you can type in the Daily Show.
Red Ice TV.
Yeah, that's another. Yeah, that's another alt-right. But if you type in YouTube, are you on YouTube?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that where? Yeah, go ahead and type in the Daily Show, and you'll
The
get
Daily
a gentleman.
Showa.
Yes, SHOAH. And you're probably not gonna be a fan.
No, I'm not. Hey, listen, I watch
Don't poison the well
every week. I watch, so I often watch people that I don't always agree with what they say. Actually, the week that was, him and I are falling in line. I just like to keep the joke going that we don't always sometimes butt heads on what we feel.
It's a meme.
But I see the Daily Show. I will look into this more because I'm curious now. Because as the Britisher said, Logical Lion and everyone here. In fact, I don't even know, Clint. You're not. Do you consider yourself alt-right? You could probably speak to this. I don't even know how long you've fucking been here, man.
Clint's a bitch.
I was just waiting for a good time to drop in and say hello to everybody.
Clint's a
Good
bitch.
No, I am definitely not alt-right. I've looked into this a little bit. I'm basically nationalist as far as America First hardcore. I'm not in favor of globalism, just like she was saying. I heard a lot of what she was saying.
Can I cut in? Can I just cut in? Because
I guess I'm more alt-light, I guess it would be.
Okay,
I don't
basically
identify politics. I believe that everybody's equal. I don't really like fixating on certain like gender issues or racial issues. I just try to stay away from all that, I guess. I think it just turns into a blame game, and I think there's other more positive, constructive things to go off from first. I mean, there's other stuff to look into down the road, but that's kind of how I feel about it. I like Stefan Molyneux a lot, of course.
Oh, that's great. Kill it, Brittany.
Like that. But yeah, I'm not really into the whole which group is this.
And I'll look into it more. I hear what you're saying.
Can I just kind of cut in? Because what struck me is we've now got somebody who has come in who says, I am definitely not alt-right. And I would see myself as a nationalist and America First. So
right.
Precisely, you can understand my confusion. So I am now sitting in Britain, and I'm now listening to somebody who says she is alt-right, and she defines it primarily as USA First.
Yeah,
and
how does
we've
Clinton
got
define
somebody
it?
come in. Then someone comes in. We've got Clinton here, who basically then says, "I am definitely not alt-right, and I would say USA First." So basically. Clinton, can you explain to us then what you see as alt-right? So then perhaps Kim can sort of tell us what she disagrees with in that view. So
from what I've gathered, and this is not to judge all alt-right people, but they essentially believe in a white ethno state, if you will. I'm not sure about the Jewish position, but usually it is anti-Zionist, and they usually consider people who again, I'm not speaking for all of them, and if I get this wrong, my apologies. But I believe that they, are anti-Zionist, or possibly, have issue with the Jewish-Palestinian situation, which where again there's a situation.
We just have issue when they're controlling our country.
Angle where I don't know enough about it exactly to call either side or blame either side. So I would for peace.
No, those are kind of two good points. So basically, we've got one. So basically, what Clinton is saying, Kim, is that alt-right. I guess he would agree that they're nationalists. That is kind of USA First, but that they have got a problem with Zionism, and that they would kind of be in favor of a white ethno state
of some kind, possibly.
Yeah. So how would you see that? I mean. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree with that? And if you disagree with that, what do you disagree with?
I agree with it partly. I think that we're not anti-Zionist, we're just anti-Zionist control in USA because we're not Israel.
And I would agree.
but that's the one thing is Writers don't like to talk about, race too much, and I get that. I'm not a big blamer either. I think we, should take responsibility. I hate hypocrites. I hate hypocrites, and I hate hypocritical nations that are pushing something so hard in Western countries, but will not have a fucking bit of it in their country.
Well,
No matter what.
I do understand.
Okay, wait, hold on now. Pause button.
Okay.
Okay. What are you defining as Zionist? Is support for Israel automatically Zionist? Do you fall into this category that automatically makes you somehow in a position where you have to choose between America and I don't understand.
No, it's just if they have control over our government, our banks, our media, which they do. I mean, a huge majority does. They even admit it now. It's not even a secret. You don't think they do? Is that
that's right there?
No, I think there's a large majority of producers and whatnot in Hollywood are Jewish. There's many reasons why. The banks right now, there's some Jews around, yes, but basically the city of London controls banks, and the Federal Reserve System's evil no matter who runs it. Baron Rothschild came up with fractional reserve banking, yes, but when I hear the whole idea that anyway, go ahead. I mean, so Zionism to you may be more than just Israel becoming a state, and it may be more of a cabal.
I mean, they got it the way they got it, and I don't believe all.
How is that? How did they get it?
What do you mean? How did they get Israel? How did they get Israel?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm wondering. I think I know, but
yeah, you know the Balfour Declaration, right?
Yes, ma'am. But some people would say that it was more done through some Russian Jews. There's people got together, and some folks would tell you that the people that engineered it, that said they were Jews, weren't real Jews, and this whole idea of this cabal of Judaism that controls banking and the media and whatever the Jews. There's a guy who wants the schmeckles. The picture that they the beard and he's going to get everybody. The wolf at the door.
I said I judge all people individually, and I do. I don't think all Jews are this. I don't think all whites are this. I am seeing a cycle reappearing, and it's scaring the hell out of me because I don't want history to repeat itself. And I see it happening, and people are just more concentrated on talking about whatever the fuck. I mean,
okay.
Do you think, Kim, think America?
I cut in.
Do you think America is a meritocracy? Do you think America is a meritocracy? Do you think America is a meritocracy? Do you think America is a?
I don't. That's a good question. I don't
Kim,
know.
do you think America is a meritocracy?
Well,
I don't know. I don't.
Real quick to her point.
Go further.
Going back, I think.
And jump in line. Let Wolf jump in. She just said.
Yeah. Let Wolfie.
What was that?
I'm sorry, Wolf. I ran over you.
Shitload of us in here.
Okay, so for 2 seconds, well, from what I understand, the alt-right was formed as a split from Richard Spencer because of his anti-Jew bullshit. And the alt-right was created as kind of an opposition to that kind of that Zionistic Jew people running the whole entire fucking world thing, which is I met many an alt-right person, especially here in Virginia and in North Carolina, and that's pretty much how it goes. That they're very much anti Jewish people running anything in the government, in the media, the banks, etc. I've heard this argument way too many times before.
They perpetuate the Jew myth and count my silver.
Yeah, pretty much. Exactly. No, seriously. It's really. I'm pro-Israel. I am very pro-Israel. And I'm actually a part of the girls group of the Proud Boys. So they consider themselves alt-light, and I would consider myself. He's a what? Tell me.
Cheers to that. Cheers to that. To the Proud Boys.
There's a what?
Yeah, I said cheers to that. That's cool.
Hey, Britisher, do you recognize that portrait right there? Do you recognize that imprint?
I think I might have seen that lady before. Yes.
Yeah, she's very famous in your country, I do believe. This is a Canadian. You can go to Canada right now and spend this for $5. It's a genuine $5 piece, but it's an ounce of silver. Yeah, so Jews may be, some of us may have been told by our grandmas and grandpas when we were very young that we were going to die young if we didn't take care of ourselves, and we were going to slip and break our neck, and we should save as much freaking money as we could and all that stuff. And for some of us it took, just like for some Asian people, you know, you can't say all, I guess, but for a lot of Asian people, they're intelligent and they get a good education. They go on to be engineers and go into the STEM side of life and make real money and have real diplomas that mean something. Unlike mine, you know, my diploma and $5 will get you a latte at Starbucks. Anyway, I don't want to ramble on, but I like what Wolfsot just said. I mean, I hope that what the alt-right really is what they say they are. And that's just some folks that really believe in their country. Kind of like, remember the British, what was that party, Britt, you were explaining to me about how, the British Nationalist Party?
The BNP. They're kind of a rather racist lot.
They are a racist lot, huh?
Yes, the BNP are quite a sternly racist lot, yes.
Well, that's what they want us to believe about the alt-right. That's what they want us to believe. From what I get from this young lady, Clint, because I know you want to say something too. I just want everybody that's here and clear, especially Logical Lines, this fucking stream, to say what they want to say. But they're trying hard to make us believe. That's why I think Marcron is probably an all-right dude, because they really want me to believe that he's evil incarnate. I'm not trying to take it back to that conversation at all.
Okay,
and that's why I have a hard time believing the alt-right is all that bad, because all I ever hear from is they're racist, they're Nazis, they're this, they're that, they're the other thing, they're fascists. And yeah, Spencer, like I said, he's unpalatable. But
okay, can I try and bring it back to something here? Because there was something very interesting Kim said, and I would just like to sort of ask her about it. And that is, you said you were afraid of history repeating itself. And I was just wondering, what history was it that you were afraid that would repeat itself?
The Jews.
What do you think I was referring to? No, the Jew-Nazi cycle. It not necessarily the actual how it played out. It's bullshit. You don't see a cycle. Okay.
No, ma'am. I said I love you.
No,
I would like to.
He said my name.
No, she's actually making a valid point. Let me extrapolate. Kim, if you don't mind.
Take a quick break.
Okay,
you go ahead and talk. I'm listening.
Okay, where I see her going, and she's exactly right, is a progression towards one particular extreme of the political movement to the other, and we've seen that across all kinds of countries. Venezuela is a great example. Early 20th century Russia, another great example, a transfer from monarchy to basically a socialist regime, very quickly turned back again to a communist, or not back again, but turned into an actual communist regime, etc. And the end result is the massive death of a bunch of people. Germany, same thing, and because of the embargoes and the other economic sanctions put on them after the First World War, it created a cycle where those in power, those in control, back then the Jews became an easy target for those who were not. And I think Kim is spot on. I think that there is a concern that maybe it's coincidental that the same group appears to be rising up, shall we say? But either way, it doesn't matter who it is. If you get an entity who is in control and times get bad, that entity becomes the Hulus and the Tutsis, the Khmer Rouge and the educated. You know what I mean? It is self-replicating. It is a cycle, and I think she's right. I think we are seeing some scary history repetitions.
Well, like, I think that she's right. Kim's right on a lot of points when she says there's no, she's alt-right on a lot of points. No, she's just correct on a lot of points. But in my summation, there is a group of insiders, and there is a group of what would you say? I believe there's an international kind of globalist conspiracy running in the background. I just don't think it has anything to do with race or certain types of people, like the Jews running it all or anything like that.
Thank you, Clint.
I don't think that the Jews run it all either. I think that there's bad guys too.
You just don't know. It's the Jews and the Illuminati, I'm telling you.
See, I look at stuff like that and I think it might be possible, but I don't discount that.
Illuminati.
It's just that I don't want to, it's like I don't know enough about it, so I'm not going to blame people. But I also like
There's
when
a-
people say that stuff, I don't just say, "Well, you just think it's a Jew." You know what I mean? Like I'm open to discuss it. I guess
The Britisher
Probably no
just
more.
loves it when I break this out, man. He's
It's
thinking
really
right
the
now. You
Anglos.
bastard.
Just the Anglos.
Do y'all know what this is right here?
That's a picture.
No,
It is a picture. It goes all the way to the center, what they're calling the Bilderberg Group. And there's some debates upon who could be in the center. And it shows you the people on the outside of it. A lot of these people, like
Right.
Paul Wolfowitz, yes, he's a Jew, but Thomas E. Dillon is not. I mean, you have Jews. You know, Conrad Black is not Jewish. You have a lot of people in here that are and some that aren't. Whether or not the Bilderberg Group is the head of all this stuff, these are the people that own these corporations. And the corporations that run the banks and the military installations and everything right here. And is it perfect? Is this little diagram perfect? The people connected to the corporations is pretty spot on and up to date. But some of the stuff is speculation on as far as do they run, you know, the U.S. Secretary of Treasury? You know, does Richard Holbrooke run that? And anyway, there you go. That's what this is. So when I think about it, please, thank you, Clint. It's a distraction to say it's the Jews. There are Jews involved in it. And yeah, I think Logical Lion made a point. The Jews probably had a lot to do with the Bolshevik Revolution and the overthrow of the czars. And that wasn't all that great. But other stuff has happened in history too. I'm not sure that they were behind Napoleon. Anyway, there you go. Thanks for that,
Clint. Say nothing
We're
about
not all
this.
evil, and I'm not that wealthy. I could buy a new car right now if I had to, but I don't want to because I don't like to spend money. I'm a fucking Jew.
I mean it's kind of possible that the. Oh, sorry.
I was just making a joke. Save the shekels. Save them.
I was just saying it's definitely possible that many of them are Jewish, but I mean I'd like to see them brought down and tried under the same, you know, constitution as everybody else. If in fact they're guilty and we can actually prove that they're doing it, I think that's like the most important thing.
Let's say for the sake of argument that it is.
But
sorry. Well, let's just say for the sake of argument that it is a majority are Jews. Let's just say that it's true. Let's say let's go crazy. Let's say 99%. The fact that they are Jewish is not indicative of any one thing. It simply means that their ancestors, who were also Jewish, were the ones who put their feet in and took the opportunities when they presented. Legal or otherwise, considering basically the purchase of England during the Napoleonic Wars. But, you know, they did it. And just because of what their ancestors did, we can't hold them responsible, even if they are evil, corrupt bastards.
They gamed the same system that we all exist in, or at least do now, but they had a head start, maybe.
Yeah,
and,
they had a head start, period.
And
They created it.
I don't know if it's their Jewishness that makes them want to do it. You know what I mean? That's the other thing.
They didn't create it. They may have molded it, but they certainly didn't create it. Go ahead, Brett.
I mean, are we really? Are we really still on? Are we on the same page here? Because I'm sorry, but I really don't see this at all. The idea that somehow the
what do you mean?
Jews could either control,
I never
have a major controlling stake, or that they should have some kind of major stake in running the world. I really don't. I don't see it.
And now for something that I think we'll all agree with. With Kim on. I've got your back, girl. We were talking off air, Britisher. And I just want you to run by the Johnny Mac thing. Not only to give a little plug to the week that was on that story you covered, but I like it so much. I just want to hear Kim's idea on the whole Johnny Mac debacle. If you don't mind getting into that, I think we'd agree with her on this too. Got nothing to do with alt-right.
On the what debacle? I'm sorry, you lost me.
Oh, the John McEnroe debacle. I don't know how familiar people are with this.
I know him, but what did he do?
I think that basically the ogre is trying to sort of take this into somewhat sort of lighter territory. I think I kind of sympathise very strongly with that.
That's called a bad segue.
Yeah, but
it's called a good thing. I just wish it was some. I just wish I'm not so stupid. I knew exactly what you're referring to.
What the John McEnroe story effectively refers to is that I'm not sure if it's a radio station. It's called NPR.
Oh,
in
National Public Radio, yes.
Did he make statements recently that were counter-Semitic or some shit like that?
No, nothing like that. No, he was being interviewed, and
oh, I think I know what you're talking.
I think he's got a book coming out or something like that, And
With the two
basically,
players'
he agreed
physical
with the
ability.
interviewer that Serena Williams was the greatest female player ever.
Yeah, for females.
And
yeah.
the interviewer then kind of pressed on, quite insistent, and sort of said, "Oh, so not the greatest player ever?"
No.
Because of course, the implication was, well, Serena Williams has won 23 Grand Slams. No male has done that, so surely she must be the greatest player ever. And
If she were to play in the
McEnroe,
men's league,
McEnroe, of course,
League,
basically, you know what McEnroe is like. I mean, he's blunt. So he basically came out and said, "No, surely not. If Serena Williams were to play on the men's tour, she would be ranked something like 700. Well, after that, of course, all the major newspapers, much of the broadcast media went absolutely berserk because here had this male, cisgendered, chauvinist pig said something about the greatest tennis player of all times. Everybody knew that what he said was true. But that didn't matter. The fact that it was correct didn't matter because it wasn't politically correct. So, of course, John McEnroe, across the media, was hauled over the coals on the basis of the fact that he had dared criticize Serena Williams. And basically, that he basically made a counter-feminist argument. And that therefore he was just plainly in the wrong. So
he's evil. He's evil.
Even though everybody knew, even though everybody really knew that he was correct, that basically Serena Williams would not stand a chance against the leading male players.
Well, and I don't want to put you on too much of a spot or have you rambled to make you talk for too long, but remember you even gave an example of something that happened with the Serena sisters that kind of showed that all their talk of playing tennis against a male that was ranked a certain. Do you want to speak about that?
Well, I believe this goes back to 1998. I'm not sure. I could be wrong with the year, but somewhere around the turn of the millennium, the Williams sisters both let it be known that they quite fancied themselves in playing against males, that they could kind of beat them because they were so supreme within the female tennis world. So they kind of had let it be known that they thought they could beat, say, someone ranked, 200 or something like that. So this German player kind of got in touch with their manager and said, well, I'm ranked 203 in the world, if they would like to have a game. So obviously with them being busy, it got called off a few times or whatever. But I think somewhere during the Australian Open, they actually did play with him. And I think what they did is they each played a set against him. That basically he went to play some golf, had one or two beers, didn't warm up, walked onto the court and took a 5-0 lead against Serena Williams without even trying. And I think then he kind of slowed down a bit, and I think he won 6-2 or something like that. And he pretty much repeated the same thing with Venus, who I think sometime later when they met on the tennis circuit again, I think it was in the US Open or whatever, she kind of said to him, this Australian thing, it never happened. And what was funny is that they then revised their kind of statement and said that they would quite like to play someone ranked 350 in the world or so. And he then got in touch with their manager again and said, well, actually, the only reason I'm ranked 203 in the world is because I had quite a good turn in one particular tournament. I don't think I will be able to repeat that again, so I will lose those ATP points. So within a month or so, I will actually be ranked roughly 350 in the world. So if they want to try again, I wouldn't mind. So it kind of shows that, even at the very peak of their powers, they really couldn't come anywhere near somebody who was ranked roughly 350 in the world.
And I did point out, since he said this for the second time, that does make him he's so sexist, Kim. He's calling her Harambe, and all these things that the British just said horrible about, and also Johnny Mac, these terrible, terrible sexists that would say these horrible things about these beautiful, godlike, goddess-like black girls that are so lovely and so feminine. Anyway, sorry.
What this is a thing that women do, and I can speak for women because I am a woman. Okay, I can't speak for the alt-right. I know you guys are being nice to me. The JQ is tough to talk about. I think we all understand, but feminists and this whole there's a game women play. They love to be the strong, independent, heroic woman, but they flip it as soon as they get their feelings hurt, and then they want to be the vulnerable little victim, and they can't have it both ways. They can't have two scoops. Can't have 2 scoops of ice cream. Can't have it both ways.
Only Donald gets 2 scoops.
You have to either be one or the other.
I'm sorry. I gotta jump in because I gotta disagree with all y'all motherfuckers.
Wait, no, you can't disagree with the man getting 2 scoops. Sorry, the boss.
I'm shocked. And then we're all wrong. Tell us about it,
I disagree.
Okay, because
it's funny.
It's a false analogy. I think what John McEnroe did was wrong because and trust me, I'm not a feminist. Fuck feminism, but
because he said the truth or because he spoke out?
No. Of course, it's the truth, but it wasn't really the question. And what I'm just hold on, now just follow me out here. Follow me out here. To someone, Michael Jordan was better at basketball than Tiger Woods was at golf. Therefore, Michael Jordan would be on a higher scale of greatest athlete of all time than Tiger Woods. Yes? Is this a fair assessment?
Yes.
Go on.
Okay, so if Serena Williams is crushing her opponents, the people in her bracket, her particular sport, her particular division, to a degree that she far outshines anyone in any other division who has ever done the same of their own opponents, is it not safe to then say that she is a superior athlete to her peer group, just like Michael Jordan is better at basketball than...
Not if she's playing the same sport.
Accurate. That's a very accurate statement, but wasn't it I hear the story about them can be they act like they're better though. I mean that's the thing is it wasn't enough for him to just say that. They had to push him on the question, to push him on because they know John McEnroe, they know.
Yeah, I agree that they didn't need to push that because he had already answered the question accurately, that she was the best girl there was. And there's nothing wrong with that.
They baited him.
And she was.
They trolled him. They baited him. They trolled him. They baited him. They trolled him.
That's awesome.
That's the McEnroe dimension.
They trapped him.
Well, but as I say, I mean, as you just pointed out, he had actually said she was the greatest female player ever. So effectively, if one would play by said set of definitions, he had already said that. But with their pressing the point, they then effectively took it into a different dimension. And that was, is she the greatest tennis player ever? And I'm afraid, no, she is not. And in that regard, he just basically answered the question completely truthfully, but was then crucified for it.
Hey, Britisher.
Which is, especially by women.
McEnroe's the greatest tennis player in my book because he runs his mouth all the time. Barkley's the best basketball player because he ran his mouth all the time.
Yes.
Muhammad Ali was the best.
Yes.
Because he ran his mouth all the time. Like
Darryl Strawberry's the best baseball player ever.
Yeah, all the ones that ran their mouth and were really super good, those are the cool ones.
This kind of tells me that you don't necessarily judge sportsmen purely on the prowess of their sporting achievement. There needs to be that bit extra. So you kind of insist on there having a personality.
Kind of, yeah.
But I think I'm trying to understand logic because he is the logical line. So Johnny Mac was, you don't think that, because I am tired of trying to compare, the whole, okay, girls can be Navy SEALs. No, they can't. Well, they can if they go through Hell Week, more power to them. Girls can be Airborne Rangers.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess. But I don't see anything wrong with what Johnny said. I was really trying to wrap my mind around where you were coming from with that.
Well, no, in the context, you're 100% right. In the context of they pushed beyond his correct initial answer, looking for is she the best tennis player? they implied a different question, to which he answered honestly and truthfully. So no, I rescind my earlier assessment that he was incorrect in his statement. The nuance of the situation warranted his response.
Well, I hate to be redundant, but like I was saying the other day, the problem I got is you have, and well, guess what, British? I can't think of his damn name again. I must.
Oh, fuck off.
Melly blocked him out. But you get situations where if there's someone that the interviewer knows doesn't agree with gun control, meaning no one can own a gun in the United States, all of these things, they try to pin them down and make them look bad in public. I think this is another case of that, where they got Johnny Mack. I mean, just like Review the Earth said, the guy is a fucking bulldog, man. I've seen him throw his racket at a line judge. I mean, the guy is a maniac. And anybody seen Mr. Deeds? I think that was a pretty close caricature of a night out of the town with Johnny Mack in New York. It's, egging cars. And I think they tried to corner him, and he was just honest.
Well, yes, but they try to kind of sacrifice him on the altar of feminism. That's basically what one was trying to make the argument that, Serena Williams, the greatest player ever, because she is more successful in women's tennis. We get the same argument, if you remember, also in football, where there was that, was it on the Daily Show? I'm not sure, where the women's team were interviewed. How many times had they won the World Cup? What did they get paid? What did the men get paid? How many times had they won the World Cup? And it was kind of portrayed in a way as in, those male players were complete, numpties, but they were getting much, much more pay just simply for having a penis. And you
British,
thought, well, no.
Can you say numpties again?
Numpties.
Not sure what that is.
But no, it's just sort of, it's that kind of, that sort of strained attempt to somehow try and push some kind of superiority, even though it is clearly on a sort of a much different level. I mean, do you know, for example, that, female football players, the national teams, tend, by and large, to practice with junior male teams? So they're roughly at the level of 16-year-olds. So that tends to be the kind of teams they actually practice against, because they will give them a decent game without absolutely annihilating them. So if you compare it on that level, if you then also see the stadiums,
the gender pay gap deal, that was so stupid.
When it comes to football, the stadiums with women's football are largely completely empty. Whereas with male games, you will struggle to get a ticket.
Except in America.
Even in a 60,000 seater stadium.
Yeah, they're collapsing the damn stadiums except in America.
So you sort of look at it and you go, well, it's fairly obvious why the males are getting paid more, because they're putting more bums on seats. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
That's
all
another
about the money.
They were trying to use that one. They said, well, the women's soccer team for the United States, because they made it to the final thing. I don't even follow it, so I don't know what the hell, whatever the world soccer thing. And they had so many eyes on this one tournament. If you actually looked at it all the way through, they make more than the men do if you go by how many eyes are on them. And so it seems like every time they try this deal, something comes out about Serena and Vanessa were already beaten by somebody ranked 300 and whatnot. And something comes out that, no, it's not no gender pay gap. Yes, it is. That males work harder jobs, get killed more often, and that goes right down to soccer. I mean, the dudes playing soccer, some of them, they actually do get hurt. They're not just faking it. And I guess the girls get hurt too, but I bet the ratio is much more that you get hit by some freight train right here. Anyway,
and we're still talking about sports.
Oh, it don't have to be sports. Anything.
Venus Williams.
It was rather sort of leaning on the feminist narrative in sports rather than on sports itself.
Oh.
So on Sunday, I'm taking over. On Sunday, I have a stream with a guy that I've been in stream chats with quite a bit, and we're actually going to be talking about strategies to unnest the social justice movement from academia, media, etc. We spend a lot of time, we YouTube content creators, don't you laugh at me, you son of a bitch. we spend a lot of time complaining and saying this is a problem, that's a problem, this is a problem, that's a problem. But what the fuck are we going to do about it? I mean, we can't just sit on the sidelines and make YouTube videos. That's a start, sure, but it effectively fixes nothing, right? I mean, that's kind of where I'm coming. Maybe I'm cynical. Maybe I'm.
Get the word out there.
Well, can I ask
Yes.
a really brutal question in that regard? I mean, how old
Go
are
ahead.
you?
How old am I?
Yes. I mean, you
Old
don't need to
enough
be
to-
precise, but roughly,
38,
30.
39, something like that.
Okay. So it's more than likely also sort of too late for you to also sort of head into the teaching profession in academia, is it?
Oh yeah, I have no interest.
That's what I mean. It's
Yeah,
in
I'm
that
too
regard,
hypothetical.
it's in that regard, as far as I'm concerned, much too late. Absolutely no chance. In that regard, there is more than likely something similar going on in terms of phenomena that we get with the complaint about women and the wage gap. That basically women aren't actually that interested in the higher paying jobs and those jobs that require ridiculously long hours. Hence, you get, that is one of the major contributing factors of the wage gap. So basically, they complain about something which they actually don't want to do something about because they're not really that interested. In the same way as you get also in academia, they're complaining about the STEM subjects, but they're not interested in going into them. So in that same way, you more than likely have got the same conundrum on the political right, whereby all of us complain about the dominance in academia of the political left, and yet really none of us are really that interested in, supplanting those people, because we don't really have that much of an interest in it. So it is more than likely just one of those things that we are, cursed to live with. I think if there is anything one could do about it, is one could actually abolish certain subjects outright. I think that might be the most hopeful thing, as
Abolish
opposed to
certain subjects. You mean
Gender studies.
I mean, what in earth?
Oh, you
is
mean
the
in
purpose
academia?
of
Okay.
having gender studies at universities? I mean, all you are doing
Great
is
question.
radicalizing people there. I mean, do not tell me that it has any academic value whatsoever.
What
And if
is
you want that
gender
kind of class-
studies?
If you want
Who
that kind
gets
of
to
class
decide
in a university that's not public, I agree with that, really. Because
Well,
that's
but who
now you're
gets to
talking about
decide
religion.
that,
That's
though?
religious.
Who gets to decide that? Who gets to be the arbiter of what is worthy of the title academia and what is not?
I want to be the arbiter.
Well, you know what? We used to, if you go to Oxford, they used to teach, they used to have, let me think. They used to teach classes that right now we would just laugh at because we don't study, and I'll take that back. You can still go to college and take classes on ghosts and whatnot. So let's say this, should be able to take whatever class you want, I guess, but who decides it? Logical Lion. Think of your name. I did that flabbergasted me because
Like what?
it's decided
Why?
on, is there anything academic in it? If it's simple,
What is gender studies?
it's a religious class.
Like what? Why would somebody need it?
Okay, well, look, if you're talking biological gender study or even a cultural view, there is some merit to exploring it, to generating studies and academic works. However, you are right. Right now, it's pure ideological bullshit. I think that we can make an argument that only STEM fields should get federal funding for students, grants and such, because we don't need gender studies. You're right. They don't provide any value to the economy. However, I feel like if we limit someone's choices because of our ideological values, we're no better than they are.
Oh, I don't want to limit it, but I just don't want to fund it. I don't want to fund the taxpayer.
That's why I'm suggesting that only STEM fields should qualify for federal grants.
I understand. I understand perfectly what you're saying. But the problem is that I find it such a poisonous ideology, and I believe it is ideological at its core to the point where it is unreformable. It will only ever be run by hardcore feminists for young women who are feminists and are then turned into seriously hardcore feminists.
But British, I had to take
indoctrinated.
It's not just feminist. I had to take that. I was showing the book. I had to take.
Do it again.
This is one of the books, Through Women's Eyes. One of my professors, that she called her a professor. This is one of the ladies. She wrote the book. This book cost something like $118, $120. I read part of it, and then basically it was just sit around and talk about your feelings. And I had to take it to get my damn degree. I had to take it. And would this be a class? In my humble opinion, no. And I believe if you ask about 95% of people, and that's where it should come from, Logical Lion, because if you'd ask 95% of the people taking psychology as I was, if this helped them at all, or they thought that it was a waste of their money and should not have been taught, they'd have been like, I will never use this in my practice, ever.
Is that Hillary Clinton on the front page?
Oh, yeah. It's got,
oh, my God.
Oh, yeah, Hillary Clinton. Look, I made a devil face out of her. Look at it. I did that in class, too. My professors hated me, but I got an A. The bitches couldn't do it because it was a lot of writing assignments, and I can write a paper.
You know that's a felony. You're defacing a feminist
book. Are you kidding me? This is a college book.
You're defacing a feminist property.
Oh, I'm sorry. I get it now. I'm sorry.
No, I was like, I would still say that it is toxic, and that basically, if you would have, if you would have something like ISIS ideology being taught, more than likely people would find some way of saying, no,
we probably do.
One wouldn't just be telling people, well, it more than likely should not receive federal funding.
No, that's what they want. It's federal funding.
More than likely,
don't misunderstand
outright, we're just not having this. And I
don't misunderstand.
When it comes to some of these courses, I mean, I think it was it Professor Peterson who basically said, they are actually rendering people less employable. They're coming out of university dumber than when they went in.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
taking
true.
away their reading skills.
That sort of thing, you've got the feeling, I'm sorry, but one is actually doing harm to these people.
Yes, I'm not suggesting that the current incarnation of the gender studies programs is at all laudable. What I'm suggesting is that the field of query of gender studies has merit. However, it's not being done properly. It is now an ideology versus a objective study, of what could be arguably an interesting field of study, because men and women are biologically different, which affects how we interact with each other.
What I would answer to that is that sounds to me very similar to the argument by people who say, oh, well, the Soviet Union didn't work and all the other communist states didn't work, but that wasn't proper communism. We should do it, and we should do it properly this time.
You read my mind.
The fact is that in the end, you will always end up with the same poisonous cabal.
But it's really all about the public school, or like the state-funded school pushing that. Like if they had a communist class, I wouldn't care, but if they have a communist class that's mandatory for a program and it's paid for by the taxpayers at to some degree at a state-funded university, that's where I would have the problem.
Well, what I'm saying is there's a difference between a history of communism and how to be a communist.
Patriarchy took over on your ass, Kim. I was trying to white knight for you.
Differences in the sexes, there are differences, and we complement each other. It could be, if it's taught from not a negative, like, oh, women are better, men are the evil. If it's not, obviously, if it's not, sorry, it's pretty bad. If it's not coming from a propaganda, I get what you're saying about the whole communist argument, but education is supposed to be education, and if it had an actual goal of educating people, not just indoctrinating them, then that would be something that I think I could be wrong, Logical Line, but is that more kind of what you're talking about? Because it could be useful if they tell,
100%.
But gender studies was effectively created by second wave feminists and is largely being sustained by second wave feminists, is now being gradually overtaken, being taken over by third wave feminists. And I'm sorry, they are all cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
So you don't think there's any value intrinsic in a gender studies type program? Not the incarnation that it is now, where it's just feminist ideology. I'm talking about the study of the interaction between the genders. You don't think there's merit there?
That's not what you said, though. You said gender studies.
Horseshit. What the fuck? It's the same thing.
But what exactly would, even if it wouldn't be completely doctrinal, which eventually it will always turn out to be, because it is cursed to be.
Why do you say that? I don't understand that inference.
What kind of person do you? What kind of person do you think is ever going to be attracted to running those courses? You know, but
I would be interested in it.
Even if you wouldn't have that,
I love chicks.
Even if you could basically separate the doctrinal, I still don't really see what.
Wait, did you just say Dr. Anal?
To be derived from that.
Well, and a couple things. You already said you're too old to teach.
I'm not really sure what you could get from that you couldn't, for example, already learn from certain segments of psychology.
Okay, that is actually a very fair argument. I will.
They're trying to pass it off as psychology. That's why I showed the book and said they forced me to take these classes that the very, very few people, in fact, the professors where I went to school were like, man, I know you got to take that, son. I'm so sorry. And daughters, you know, we would laugh in other classes. Anyway, I don't want to get into a bunch of anecdotal evidence, but to answer your question, logical line, no. As it stands right now, gender studies, and as the Britisher said, the interaction between the sexes, man, that's covered in 211, man, psychology 211. It starts for sure. And there's people take psychology classes because they're going to be marital counselors. There's a plethora of classes on that. Roles and how, anyway, there you go. So that was a great way to say it, but we already got it. It is not, as long as they call it gender studies and it is what it is, there's no place in academia for it. No more than there is, in my mind, teaching Maoist communism in any other fashion than this is part of a class on politics of world government. Well, of course, you're going to talk about it, but to teach that specifically, there's no why. It's going to, again, it's like Mr. Peterson said, Dr. Peterson, it's just making people less employable. It's putting these ideas. I see people walk around the little town that I'm in wearing Che Guevara, and not like Crowder's, you know, fascism is gay, communism is gay, but to have Che Guevara shirt on, hat with Che Guevara on it, or Cuba, you know, I've seen people wearing Fidel Castro shirts, like with a picture of Fidel Castro on it, and not because of joke, they're idolizing these people. That's what you get from gender studies and classes that teach communism, man. And look, I'm not McCarthyist or anything like that. I don't know if I should even have said all that, but it is how I feel about it. I'm with the Britisher. Things should pass a certain bar, or you get woke in the Oxford English Dictionary.
That's actually in there now.
I need to ask, just given that you touched on Che Guevara and berets and whatever, did either of you catch the picture of a young communist Count Dankula on Twitter?
Yes, dude, and I tweeted at him about that shit.
Yeah.
I made some comment about him still not being able to grow a proper beard.
Yes, I just the only comment I could think of at the time was, why does the name Damien spring to mind?
Hey, Britisher, when is this is completely, but I'm curious now, when is his deal? When's his date?
I believe it's the 29th. I've somehow got it in my I've got it in my mind somehow that it's the same date. Basically, Dankula's big date is the same date as Boogie's big date, I believe. So Dankula,
when he goes going out on a date,
court,
the surgery
at the same day as Boogie is going under the knife, I believe.
Yeah, right. I didn't know that, but I'm going to guess this, Britisher, that since he's got a lawyer now, or he's acquiring a lawyer with real dineros, it's not a public pretender, as we call him here, court-appointed lawyer. Maybe his lawyer will be like, I need a little bit of time. There may be another delay, or he may have time to look at it, but I don't know. Seems like he might want to get a chance to get things together, especially if he's a suit. We'll see. I don't know. But this time, I bet if it's delayed, it won't be the prosecution, Brett. It'll be his lawyer saying, you know what, I need about another couple weeks, a month to get my case together so I can make you people look like the Nazi fascist fools you are. because there are Nazis involved in this lawsuit with Dankula. It's just not beloved Count Dankula that tweets people his nuts. How warm-hearted do you have to be? What says I love you like a sweaty, kinky-haired nutsack? To you, personally to you, from Dank.
Well, there we have poetry in motion.
Sorry, Brett, I had to do it.
Of course,
it's been a tight day, man. The Logical Line, he brings some stuff every time I watch his stream. Always, it's deep. It's always something political.
Yes, we ended on a perfect ogreism there, didn't we? I think we can work towards getting that established in the Oxford English Dictionary. An ogreism.
An ogreism. I like that. That's pretty clever. So I was thinking the conversation about the gender studies. You guys make valid points. I come around. My paradigm shifts. I refine my views on the world. That's why I love doing these kind of conversations, because I feel like anytime you have a Socratic discussion with someone, you are refining your own ideas, and we'll never be perfect. But as long as we're working to improve them, we're going in the right direction. And my fear is that the internet enables, and I did either a stream or I don't know, I did a video or something on this, that I think that our internet generation unfortunately creates an environment in which we shield ourselves away from differing opinions, so that we never get the opportunity to evolve our idea structures and have paradigm shifts so that we can improve our way of thinking. And that makes me really sad. So I see that happening in more and more in kind of the internet generation. But then I also get emboldened by our internet generation, even in kind of closed, loosely fitting communities like our skeptic community, as in the case of, that is so awesome, as in the case of Count Dankula. Some shit happened to him that's garbage. He gets fucked by the system, and yet we, as a very loosely fit organization, a very loosely fit, shall I say, community, come together and provide assistance for this guy. The feminists fucking eat their own. Look at what they're doing to Lacey Green. We rally, they tear each other apart. I mean, I'm terrified.
And look what they do to like people like Blair White or Milo Yiannopoulos. I mean, if they just step out of line, they're Nazis. I mean, it goes from you're part of the LGBTQ plus 65, 75 on the backside, give me 5, to you go from that to you don't agree with us. You're a Nazi, Milo. You're a fucking homophobe. Anyway. That stuff's insane.
Homophobe, racist. I'm concerned because of their control in media and academia. I'm concerned that they literally are in the positions. Have you ever read Brave New World, I think?
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Bless the bottle. Praise the bottle. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's similar concept. They being in control of academia and media, they get to brainwash and produce the next generation, who will then produce the next generation. I'm concerned that they have the wheels of power under their thumb. And that's really where I'm at. That's why I started my channel. That's why I want to have these conversations so people can see and we can kind of get the word out there, etc. Because I'm terrified of what it will become. We laugh at them now.
I ain't laughing too much. I would laugh on the gallows, I would point out. I don't think it's a real laughing matter, but I think one of the ways to combat everything for me is with a smile and a laugh. But no, I agree with you, man. It's no laughing matter what's trying to happen right now, and it's tyranny of not the majority. It's the tyranny of the vast minority, the very vocal crybaby minority that try to bike lock people in the head and get away with it, and that's okay because what they did just hitting a Nazi. Remember that guy that was fake Brit, and I can't remember. Oh, you mentioned him. I can't remember his name. The guy with the beard, the mustaches. That was like it's okay to punch a Nazi and why he thought it was okay. Anyway, I think the dude turned out to just be a flat out troll. I don't think he even believed what he was saying, but he got me. Because I did a video, it's still up. But those people.
Well, I think it's not just. I don't think it's the fringe minorities acting alone. I think, unfortunately.
Well, they're banded together, but they're very tiny.
Well, I know they are very tiny, but they're not the problem. The problem is the complicit majority, the ones who go about. All right, look. Did you watch the Joe Rogan podcast with Sargon of Akkad? It was like fucking 5 hours long.
Man, I'd heard so much about the whole debacle that whenever I didn't watch it, but I will go back and see it, believe me.
It's not great. Sargon could have done a lot better, but you know, he was tired. And he's really hung up on this Anita thing. He's got to let that go. Put it in its box, shelve it for what it is, and move on. But anyway, so I watched all 5 hours of this shit, and then I scrolled down to the comments, and it was comment. And I know that YouTube comments are cancer. I'll get to that in a minute. It was comment after comment of who is this Sargon guy? Who is this Anita Sarkeesian? It seems like this Sargon is caught up on this Anita girl. They didn't know who these actors were, and why that matters to me is because Anita Sarkeesian, while she's a despicable person, you know, she's the leader of an organization that somehow got a seat in front of the UN, and he fell. Well, shit, now I don't know what to do. This has never happened to Carman before. I'm going to refresh the page. Oh, you think, Matt Barkley, you think he's fomenting the drama? Sargon is? If you can fucking hear me, I don't know what the hell's going on here. Are you back, Ogre? Don't ever leave me. I get so scared. I get so scared. What the fuck? He left again. I'm so alone. So Matt, in the chat, you are saying that Sargon is fomenting the drama. For the purpose of what? Don't you feel he is losing credibility? Oh, that's not good. Damn it, Kim.